Chapter 952. Oh, it's okay. It's just a little friction. It's no big deal. I'm not that petty. I understand that you guys have a problem with me. If I were you, I wouldn't be happy either. However, there were some things that were more practical than explaining it once on stage, right? I don't want to ruin my own reputation. You guys might find it hard to understand why I'm like this, but I can tell you very seriously that I won't bring shame to your performance and the classic thunderstorm. To everyone's surprise, Chen Guang, who was sitting on the chair, was extremely magnanimous. Not only did he not stab Shi Lu in the back, he didn't even raise his head to look at her. Instead, he continued to focus on the script. He didn't stop flipping through the pages, but his mouth was calm as he spoke. Even Hu Delin and Yin Fei were a little confused. When they were persuading Shi Lu, they discussed how Chen Guang would react. They even emphasized to Shi Lu again and again that no matter how much he went overboard, she must bear with it and not intensify the conflict. After all, previous events showed that Chen Guang was a very narrow-minded person. After Shi Lu apologized, she steeled her heart and used her mind to block her ears. She made up her mind that no matter how much this guy went overboard, she would bear with it. But he was actually so magnanimous, like an old man easily forgiving a willful naughty child. This feeling was so strange that it caught people off guard. At this moment, it was Yang Shi who reacted quickly and clapped his hands. All right. Since we're clear about this matter, then we won't waste any more time here. Chen Guang, you can look at the script first, and we'll go and have a look at the scene. Yang Shi signaled to Hu Delin and Yin Fei with his eyes, and the two of them took Shi Lu outside to smooth things over. From the beginning to the end, the makeup artist, who only cared about taking care of Chen Guang, looked on coldly from the sidelines. This makeup artist was part of the industry, and he was also one of the staff members behind the scenes of Chen Guang's version of Thunderstorm. He was already familiar with the storm on the internet. Sigh, it's really pitiful to be a celebrity. They look glamorous on the outside, but they're actually very wronged in private. Just like Hu Delin, Yin Fei, and Shi Lu, the leading actors of the drama, they had a bit of fame, but in the end, they were dragged by Chen Guang to accompany the crown prince to study, and they even had to lower their heads in front of him. With the frequency at which he flipped through the book, would he be able to get into it? It would be strange if he could remember his lines. He's just putting on an act for you to see. Before you came in, he had already been rummaging for a few minutes. What the makeup artist didn't expect was that Chen Guang spent 2.5 hours in disguise. Boss Chen, aren't you getting too into character? I'm just an inconspicuous makeup artist. What are you playing at? Are you putting on an act for me to see? Wait a minute. He couldn't have fallen for me, right? But I'm already in my 40s. Isn't that a little too old? Youngsters nowadays like mature types. But I'm a man. However, Chen Guang couldn't be bothered about what this crazy makeup artist was thinking. After his makeup was done, he changed his clothes and walked out. He changed into a Republic of China-style suit. Although there was something wrong with his brain, he had a pretty good makeup artist's finishing touch. It made him look a little more mature and less immature. He really did look like a young master from the Republic of China. When Chen Guang went outside, Yang Shi was pulling one main cast member after another to go through the key points of the play. Those who weren't checked by Yang Shi were lowering their heads and reading the script. Although everyone present had acted in Thunderstorm more than once, and they were still learning from the past, this was a 3.5-hour-long performance of 5 acts. If they forgot their lines halfway through, the effect of the performance would definitely be greatly reduced, even if they had a teleprompter hidden in their ears. Although not many people felt that they could last until the second act, just like what Shi Lu thought, no matter how unreliable the male lead was, they would do their best and leave the rest to fate. Anyway, if something went wrong, it couldn't be their fault. The amount of people scolding Chen Guang online also reached its peak in the afternoon, especially the news that Shi Lu had stopped acting and was pulled back. No one knew who in the production team had secretly spread the news, but it poured oil on the fire. The situation was out of control. Mango TV, which had bought the live broadcast rights, even held an emergency meeting to discuss whether they should prepare 2 backup programs in advance. This was a national live broadcast. If they couldn't continue acting, they had to cut off the signal in time and change the program. If it was possible, it would be best to discuss with Tianguang's agent to see if they could adjust the license price of the live broadcast rights according to the broadcast time of the program. After all, if they spent a lot of money to buy the copyright only to be broadcast for less than 10 minutes, it would be too much. The manager of a certain business department of Mango TV, who was in charge of the operation, was scolded by the station's higher-ups. How could he be so stupid as to transfer the full amount in one go? Why didn't he sign a floating clause when he signed the contract? The manager was so aggrieved that his eyes were filled with tears. That wasn't what you said when you asked me to talk to you. At that time, you said that I must get it at all costs. Our satellite TV has already lost step by step in the competition. This is a rare opportunity, we must make a beautiful comeback. All of you clearly agreed to the terms, but now you want me to be the scapegoat? He braced himself and looked for the manager of Tianguang's business department, Fang Tianyu, to discuss changing the contract. In the end, the other party's reply was only 2 words. Her. What was worse was that he had offended someone. Fang Tianyu had perfectly implemented Shen Guang's principle of being a person. He must not be at a disadvantage. At that time, Fang Tianyu's original words were like this. I've long heard that your station is famous for changing your mind at the last minute. I didn't believe it, but now I believe it. Yo, are you bullying us because of your big business? Where did your spirit of the contract go? Changing a good contract just like that? Do you think we're pushovers? Come on, I know you have your difficulties, but you guys are a little too dishonest in this matter. Let me tell you, if you only call me, if CEO Chen finds out about your station's intentions, in the future when your station broadcasts news simulcast, if there are any scenes of CEO Chen, all of you will have to censor it. Director Chen can turn your station into a parallel universe's Mango TV. Do you understand? Then Fang Tianyu hung up the phone. Lu Xiaoyang, who had just rushed back, asked nervously, Old Fang, can we handle it by acting so pretentiously? Fang Tianyu patted Lu Xiaoyang on the shoulder. Old Lu, we're feeling bitter. If I wasn't so strong-willed, those people who signed the contract with us would have turned into hungry wolves and bitten me to death. As Fang Tianyu said that, his sharp eyes saw a familiar figure appear at the backstage entrance of the theater. Damn, Director Chang from Bamboo is here. I'll hide for a while. This is Director Chen's acquaintance, I can't get hard. This Director Chang was naturally brother Little Chong. Hey, Manager Fang. Don't hide, don't hide. I'm not here to cause trouble. Little Chong's sharp eyes quickly chased after him. Fang Tianyu patted his chest. Director Chong, next time you should inform me first. You scared me to death. You don't know, but recently I have to go to the basement to go home. People are blocking my way. That's because those people have no foresight. They don't believe in Brother Guang's ability. I have full confidence in him. Manager Fang, just follow Brother Guang's example and blacklist those sponsors and broadcasters who have been causing trouble recently. They'll regret it later. Chang Xiaozong was indeed someone who had followed Shen Guang and made a name for himself. He was very confident. Fang Tianyu sighed. Sigh. How can we blacklist a salesperson? We can't have enemies forever. We can only have profits forever. Manager Fang, I think you're a good person. You're a talent. Come to work at Bamboo. I don't dare. I'm afraid Director Chen will strangle me to death. On the other side, Yang Shi was still acting seriously. Everyone, keep your spirits up. Go through your scenes in your head. Uncle Hu, adjust your collar. Zhou Puyuan is someone who cares a lot about appearance. Sigh, yes. Sister Yin Fei is indeed experienced. That's how Fanny should be. There's a hint of charm in her eyes, but not too much. Unknowingly, everyone's emotions were stirred up by Yang Shi. Thunderstorm, which was supposed to be on the verge of being overdone, suddenly became a huge mountain in everyone's heart. Everyone had the same thought. This was all because of the male lead, who was flipping through the script from the beginning again. It was Chen Guang, who was going to play Zhou Ping. It was 6:30 p.m. in the evening. The small theater that could only accommodate a few hundred people was gradually filled up. From time to time, the main cast in the backstage would hear the hustle and bustle of people outside. When they turned to look at Chen Guang, who was still flipping through the script, they couldn't help but feel strange. No matter how much of a scammer he was, no one could deny his popularity. There weren't many people who could make a small theater play this popular. Moreover, this was a play that had already been performed countless times. It was almost impossible to perform anything new. It could only be compared to the classics and find all sorts of faults. In recent years, very few film crews would choose to act in Thunderstorm. Firstly, the Republic of China drama was a bit too old. The audience was tired of it. Secondly, it was strenuous and unrewarding. Everyone thought to themselves, perhaps our situation is not bad. Even if we can't be immortalized, we can at least be infamous for thousands of years. We can't perform the best thunderstorm, but at least we have a chance to perform the worst thunderstorm in history. This is also an achievement, right? Finally, under the gaze of tens of millions of TV and computer viewers, and under the gaze of hundreds of people in the small theater, the lights dimmed and the curtains on the stage slowly opened. The brown carved wooden door creaked open with a very historical and heavy creak. Chen Guang's version of Thunderstorm was officially on stage. Chapter 953. The small theater was completely silent. Both the audience and the staff of Tianguang Agency were paying full attention to the stage. Even Big Beard Deng, who was thousands of miles away in Beijing, gave himself a rare holiday. He pulled a few of the production crew members to sit in front of the TV, just to watch Chen Guang's drama, which had almost become a farce. He did not dare to pull the other main actors, for fear that Chen Guang's performance on the stage would make the other actors not want to continue filming, and they would quit. Big Beard Deng had a headache. He hoped that Chen Guang would learn to act well. If possible, it would be best to send him to the CCTV or Chinese drama school to sharpen his skills. But obviously, Chen Guang would not be so obedient. This young man, whose identity was getting more and more special, did not have the time and schedule. He seemed to be busier than a big director like him, but he was busy with something that ordinary people were not qualified to ask about. But I did not expect you to play it so big. You challenged the most difficult live drama the moment you came, and you even said it would be broadcasted to the whole country. Why don't you go to heaven? Why are you so daring? There were 100 actors who could act in front of the camera, but there were probably less than 10 who could complete the whole drama. Although drama actors were not famous, and their income might not be as high as movie stars, everyone knew that the drama stage was the real place to train people. Currently, the recognized acting school in the country, the old artists who were famous among the people, all had experience in drama. I say, Director Deng, I still feel unsure. Isn't that obvious? I'm not sure either. What if he messes up? It's one thing for him to lose his reputation, but what about our movie? We haven't even finished filming, and his reputation is already ruined. Can we replace him? Big Beard felt a headache coming on. Replace him? What a joke. This drama was originally tailor-made for Jiang Yage. If Chen Guang did not act, and Jiang Yage also quit, then who would take the role? The main cast has been completely replaced. Also, don't forget that Chen Guang, Jiang Yage, and Jin Shiriyue are the main investors in this movie. Xianda Pictures only has 10% of the shares. That's right, we can't change our boss. Sigh, Director Deng, it's been hard on you. It's fine. I was the one who chose him back then, so I admit it. Alright, let's not talk about this for now. Let's watch the TV and see what Chen Guang can do. The plot of the play on TV had already begun to move forward. At the beginning of the prologue in the first act, Chen Guang did not have any scenes. Although the other actors on the stage were hastily prepared, they were still professional actors with high standards. Thus, they were able to act according to the rules. Assistant Yang's standard is getting better and better. I didn't expect him to be able to do this in less than a week. Jiang Yage, who was also in front of the TV, commented with great interest. Jin Shirua nodded and said, I just saw the news on the internet that Shi Lu, who plays the Four Phoenixes, lost her temper with Chen Guang in the afternoon. It looks like she has some real skills. Jiang Yage continued to comment, Hu Delan's Zhou Puyuan is also quite good. He hasn't even shown his face yet, but those 2 lines are enough to make him look old-fashioned. Jin Shirua shook her head and said, I think Hu Delan is a bit too strong. I didn't expect the veteran actor to be a bit nervous. Jiang Yage threw a small tomato into her mouth and chewed it. She said in a muffled voice, It's all because of our dear Guang. You can't say that. Although they are acting well now, Thunderstorm is indeed a bit old. If it wasn't for Chen Guang, I'm afraid many people would have changed the channel. There wouldn't be so much attention. Jiang Yage snorted and said, I understand that, but it's not a good thing to have so much attention. It's also because we really can't make time. Otherwise, we would really be the ones to do it. I'm quite embarrassed to see these people bring so much trouble to him. Jin Shirua also blushed slightly. She thought to herself that she did feel a little sorry for them. In the small theater, the bald president, who was sitting among the crowd, yawned loudly. Seeing this, the vice president beside him muttered softly, It's a bit boring. Isn't that so? We have such a hardcore fan group, but only a few of us came. We don't have the prestige we used to have. Tui tui tui, fans my ass. You are the fans. I'm a hate fan of Chen Guang. The most determined hate fan of Chen Guang. Mr. President, can we accept our fate? Just admit it. Admit what? Admit that you're already a fan of Chen Guang. Isn't that what the internet is saying? Tui. I can be his fan. I can't wait to bite him to death. Alright, the vice president really felt sorry for this stubborn president. Can't we be a little more honest? As the prologue passed, the first act slowly progressed. Yang Shi, who was backstage, looked at his watch from time to time. He was getting more and more nervous. Chen Guang, are you ready? When Zhou Chong starts to talk about why he's still not married, you start to walk forward. Then, when Fan Yi starts to lower her head and murmur, who knows, you have to walk to the door. At that time, Zhou Chong will look back at you and say, Hey, big brother is here. At that time, your scene will start. You must remember, when you're acting as Zhou Ping, you can't be like your usual majestic gait. You have to slow down a little. When you enter the door, you have to act very sleepy and yawn. Chen Guang tilted his head and looked at Yang Shi for a long time, not saying a word. Yang Shi suddenly paused, the corner of his mouth twitching. Sorry, I was a little too nervous and forgot. Why am I telling you all this? Bro, did you really remember the script? Chen Guang put down the notebook. Brother Yang, I really did. Really? If you keep talking nonsense, I'll have to hit you. Yang Shi shrunk his neck and dodged to the side. He secretly mocked himself. I'm in a mental block. Why am I explaining the script to him? As long as he can remember the script, he's a true master. Does he need to waste his breath on his understanding of the character? At this time, there's no point in continuing to ask him about this. Anyway, it's a knife to my head, it's a knife to my head. I'll just leave the rest to him. At this time, Fan Yi's actor, Yin Fei, was working hard to maintain her performance on stage with Zhou Chong. Everyone knew that Chen Guang was about to come on stage. Perhaps, as soon as he got on stage and started to stutter, this show would be over, right? But there's no point in worrying about this now. I'll just take care of my own business first. Perhaps it was because of distracting thoughts in her mind, Yin Fei almost stuttered when she said her lines, causing Yang Shi, who was in the audience, to jump up and down in anxiety. What is Yin Fei doing? She's a veteran actor, how can she make such a mistake on stage? Sigh. Yang Shi felt a little regretful after only watching the first half of the opening. If he had known earlier, he would have suggested to Chen Guang to change the script. Forcing himself to challenge Thunderstorm was a bit too much. So far, the actors on stage had only performed average. They hadn't been able to perform anything special or innovative, which made him feel very disappointed. It was difficult to surpass a classic, not to mention that he didn't have much time left. He really didn't have the ability to rehearse over and over again, polishing and adjusting everyone's state to the state he wanted. The actors were also focused on stability on stage and didn't dare to have any off-topic performance. They didn't want to make any mistakes, but they didn't want to make any contributions. If this was just a small show on a small stage, their performance would still be above the standard. But this was a nationally broadcast play that received a lot of attention. Not to mention the people in the theater, there were countless people all over the country who were pointing at the screen and talking about it. For the past Chen Guang, mediocrity was failure. For the classic Thunderstorm, which had been brought to the stage time and time again, if it couldn't come up with something innovative, people would say that it was relying on its predecessor's legacy to cheat people's money. The more familiar a classic was, the easier it was to be compared. Once a comparison was made, people would nitpick. No matter how small a flaw was, it would be magnified infinitely in the eyes of others. Some were obviously very good improvisation and innovation, but it would also be covered up by others' preconceived impressions. Sigh, it's too late to regret now. Yang Shi was in a daze when Chen Guang, who was beside him, suddenly strode forward. Yang Shi was stunned at first, then suddenly came back to his senses. It was Chen Guang's turn. He was actually lost in thought. He hurriedly turned back to call the others. Make the best use of this last bit of time and think of a way to sculpt if he could. He pulled Hu Dellen, who was about to go on stage. Uncle Hu. Hu Dellen understood his thoughts in a second and waved his hands. Director Yang, don't count on me. I only have this little ability, I can't lead the others. In fact, a veteran actor like Hu Dellen could handle the situation at the critical moment, but he felt that he did not have the fighting spirit. Although he had been helping Yang Shi with Shi Lu's work, this was only his duty as a senior. He really did not have the determination to put his life on the line and forcefully lead the others, even at the risk of failing miserably in an easy task. Yang Shi sighed and turned to look in the direction of the stage. Chen Guang was about to enter. Zhou Chong and Fan Yi were discussing why Zhou Ping was still not married. Up until now, Chen Guang hadn't said a word. He was also facing the stage with his face sideways. Yin Fei and Zhou Chong's actors couldn't even see his expression clearly. However, his simple steps had the feeling of anticipation in Yang Shi's heart, and even exceeded it. He portrayed the image of a dispirited young master of the Republic of China who was in low spirits and had a heavy heart. Others had no confidence in Chen Guang and couldn't understand the mood, but Yang Shi understood that Chen Guang was already in character. Yang Shi's breath stopped for a moment. It's coming. As long as Chen Guang can remember the lines, there won't be a problem. Yang Shi gripped the walkie-talkie in his hand tightly. If he forgot the lines, he would quickly remind him. Director Yang, Chen Guang's earphones. At this moment, the floor supervisor walked up with a pale face, holding a pocket-sized bone conduction earphone in his hand. Yang Shi's face turned pale. Oh my God. This guy isn't wearing earphones. It's over. On the other side, Chen Guang raised his head slightly, opened his mouth, and raised his hand slightly, covering his mouth with his fair palm. Zhou Chong smiled stiffly. Brother. Actually, he should be smiling naturally. Zhou Chong was a very simple and upright person, and he had a very good relationship with his half-brother, Zhou Ping. Chen Guang looked up, his slightly hazy eyes regaining some clarity. He nodded slightly. You're here. That's the smell. Yang Shi listened to Chen Guang's slightly tired but intimate, "You're here," through the earphone. His heart almost stopped, and his breathing completely stopped. In a haze, he seemed to have returned to that coffee shop, watching Chen Guang transform into the angry Muhammad Ali, leaping in front of him like a butterfly. At this moment, he looked so natural, and he seemed to fit in with the surrounding folk style of the setting. Even his voice had changed, becoming a little low and hoarse. A simple greeting to his brother had imperceptibly played out Zhou Ping's many thoughts. Chapter 954. Hu Delan's eyes widened as he glanced at the stage, then at the security camera behind him. What's going on? Why do I feel like he's blended in with his surroundings? Yang Shi didn't reply to Hu Delan and continued to watch quietly. On the stage, Chen Guang's voice sounded. Suddenly, Yin Fei felt an inexplicable sense of resentment. Ping. She felt indignant. She felt that Zhou Ping was purposely avoiding her. She didn't even look at her when she came in and only cared about greeting Zhou Chong. Chen Guang turned to look at her. Oh. Then he paused. His throat felt like it was stuffed with cotton, and he didn't know what to say. He lowered his head evasively. From the details in the security camera, Zhou Ping's gaze drifted slightly towards Zhou Chong. It was very subtle. All of this took a long time to describe, but it was a small detail that took less than 3 or 4 seconds. He shifted his feet slightly, pretending to shake off the non-existent dust on his shoes. Then he looked up at Fan Yi and said, "You're here too." Fan Yi's gaze drifted slightly towards Zhou Chong. After making sure that Zhou Chong wasn't looking at her, she looked up slightly and said, "I just came down." As she said this simple line, her gaze drifted, but she secretly gave Zhou Ping a sense of resentment. Her tone hid a coquettish pout that only lovers could understand. She seemed to be resentful. "Why are you avoiding me? Why do you want to leave?" It was a simple sentence, but it hid a lot of complicated things in the past. But at the same time, she had to be wary of Zhou Chong and not let him see through her. This desire to speak, full of hidden bitterness, this shameful act of stealing chickens and dogs, was all hidden in the words, "I just came downstairs." Chen Guang's body trembled slightly when he heard Fan Yi's words. His stiff movement was caught by the high-definition security camera, but it also happened to avoid Zhou Chong's attention. He deliberately turned his head and asked Zhou Chong, "Father didn't go out, did he?" Chen Guang purposely paused after the word father, as if to answer Fan Yi's complaint, to express his own confusion, and to warn Fan Yi. This was still a secret hidden between the two of them, a secret that only they could understand. But Zhou Chong didn't seem to notice. He turned to look in the direction of the study before replying, "No, are you going to see him?" Hu Delan, who was behind the scenes, was so excited that he couldn't speak. When the young man turned his head just now, there was no accent at the back. This is really a stroke of genius. Yang Shi also said, when Yin Fei said, "Go downstairs" earlier, that almost imperceptible tremble in her voice was simply too amazing. "Director Yang, have you noticed that Yin Fei and the others are completely immersed in their roles? It's completely different from its previous state." Hu Delan said excitedly, "We've been rehearsing for a few days, but she's never been so immersed in the role." Yang Shi nodded. "That's right. They're already in the middle of the movie and can't get out." He knew exactly what was going on. This was what was truly terrifying about Chen Guang. When he was immersed in the role, there would be an invisible realm with him as the center, completely enveloping the people and things around him. He could attach a layer of the soul of an era to lifeless scenes and props, and he could even make the people around him completely lose themselves. Their souls would involuntarily overlap with the character they were about to play, allowing the character's true self to completely overwhelm the actor's true self. This was probably what he meant by world-class acting. A world of its own. Yang Shi had no idea how Chen Guang did it, but he was absolutely certain that it was the truth. Chen Guang never bragged, but when it came to acting, he was really amazing beyond imagination. Yang Shi would never understand that Chen Guang was able to achieve such an achievement in acting because he had lived in the world of acting countless times and reached the highest realm that only others could achieve. He could use his seemingly subtle movements, his exquisite micro-expressions, and his small movements that were so vivid that people couldn't tell if it was a play or a real life, to control everything around him. His voice, which seemed to have a magical charm, and even the frequency of the vibration of his vocal cords, could completely merge himself with the role, and then ruthlessly extract the role from the story, turning it into real life, and covering his stage. Yin Fei and Zhou Chang's actors couldn't understand the secret behind it, but it didn't matter. The moment Chen Guang opened his mouth, they were pulled into the realm of world-class acting. They didn't realize it at all, but they had already lost themselves, as if they had been possessed by the character in the movie. This wasn't because of Chen Guang's terrifying hypnosis ability, but because actors like them were trying their best to act as someone else in their subconscious. What Chen Guang did was to use his world-class acting skills to influence others, to maximize the subconscious of the actors, so that they could completely change from acting as someone else. While Yang Shi was in a daze, Hu Delan, who was next to him, bowed his head and frowned. It wouldn't be long before it was his turn to go on stage. After witnessing Chen Guang's performance with his own eyes, Hu Delan, a veteran actor, had been unknowingly brought into the role. At this moment, he was no longer himself. He had become the mine owner Zhou Puyuan, who was still annoyed and depressed by the recent strike in his own mine, and was also having a headache about his good-for-nothing eldest son. Yang Shi and Hu Delan weren't the only ones who were truly shocked. The eyes of the hundreds of people in the small theater, who had been yawning, lit up when Chen Guang appeared. Some people wanted to see him make a fool of himself, some were afraid that their idol would be embarrassed, and some had an indifferent attitude. In their hearts, they had already sentenced Chen Guang's version of Thunderstorm to death. This was just a boring copy of a classic. Whether or not Chen Guang could continue acting, this play was just a ridiculous play by a local tycoon. It couldn't leave any trace in the history of art. Perhaps in the future, it would become a topic of conversation and a laughing stock. Although the actors on stage were professional, they were very reserved. They were just copying everything from the past, and there was nothing new. They even began to whisper rudely under the stage, just like the bald president and vice president. There were even some people who didn't like the play and were just here to watch the fun, thinking of leaving. Until Chen Guang appeared, everything seemed to change in an instant. On the stage in the style of the Republic of China, the exquisitely made props became dimmer without warning, giving people a strong sense of simplicity. Even the stage lights became gray, as if they were looking at an old painting that had been stored for 20 or 30 years. But what really changed was the state of the actors on stage. Fan Yi's cheating failed, and as a stepmother, she cheated on Zhou Ping. Now, she was facing the fate of being hated and abandoned. The complicated pouting and resentment when she spoke to Zhou Ping instantly made the hearts of those who understood the play race. This was a completely different state from before. Even those who didn't understand the play were aroused by her soft words. Beijing. Big Beard Deng stood up from the sofa. He still had a cigarette in his mouth, and the lighter in his hand was still emitting orange flames. His beard was almost burnt, but he didn't seem to notice. Jiang Yage and Jean Shuriyue, who were originally curled up lazily on the sofa, had already sat up straight. Their bodies were stiff as they stared at the TV, blinking their eyes, unable to believe what they were seeing. Unlike others, Jiang Yage and Jean Shuriyue had known Chen Guang for a long time, and they had seen Chen Guang's tragedy on the set of Tears for a Country Will Run. But they weren't like Yang Shi, who had seen how Chen Guang used his perfect performance to prove himself. Their view of Chen Guang was still stuck at the level where he could make the whole screen suffer from the cancer of embarrassment. So Jiang Yage and Jean Shuriyue were originally like Big Beard Deng, the most firm representatives who believed that Chen Guang's acting was not reliable. But what did they see now? What an incredible scene! Yin Fei was completely taken in by his performance. Although Yin Fei wasn't particularly famous in the circle, she was considered a veteran in the field of drama. In the past, Jiang Yage and Jean Shuriyue had seen Yin Fei's performance live. They knew that this veteran was limited by talent. Although she was diligent enough, her overall level had stagnated and she couldn't improve. In the acting industry, although more learning, more practice, and more thinking could make up for the lack of standards to a certain extent, it was still an industry that relied on talent. Everyone could act, but whether they could perform the desired effect in front of the camera or on the stage, to the extent that it didn't feel like they were acting, depended on whether the performer could understand the requirements of the director and the script, feel the state of the character, and perform it perfectly. Some people needed to deliberate painstakingly, but some only needed to look at the script, find a corner to think about, ponder, and completely grasp the state of mind of the character. This was talent. After all, the upper limit of a person's level on the stage was determined by their talent. Yin Fei was a qualified and competent actress, and she was very talented among ordinary people. But she was not young anymore, and her upper limit was already there. Otherwise, she would have become famous a long time ago. Unless she was able to encounter some kind of life experience that allowed her to gain enlightenment, it was impossible for her level to change too much in a short period of time. But now, Yin Fei looked so talented and dazzling on the stage. In the eyes of ordinary people, they saw the role of Fan Yi. But in the eyes of professionals like Jin Shiyue, Jiang Yage, or Big Beard Deng, they saw the actress Yin Fei herself. There was only one explanation: Yin Fei was influenced by someone else, and she was brought into the play by someone else. It was impossible to play the role of Zhou Chong. Although this young man was a talented senior in school, many of his juniors were envious of him. Because of this and that, he performed poorly in this play. Sometimes, Yin Fei had to guide him, and he barely managed to stay in the play. As for the others, Shi Lu, who had already appeared on the stage, didn't have this ability. Although she did her job well, when it came to driving Yin Fei in the play, she was still miles away. The other passers-by, the old people and children at the opening, Lu Gui, Lu Dehai, and Hu Delan, who only had a few lines but never showed his face, didn't have this ability. There was only one explanation, and it must be Chen Guang, who was also on the stage at this time. He was like a bright lamp, illuminating the whole stage, and the people and things that were shrouded in his light were forcibly pulled out of this world, and returned to the story described in the novel, which happened 100 years ago. The medium-sized stage was still there, and it was still on the television, but time seemed to flow backward in that part of the world. That was the world of Thunderstorm. That was Chao Yu's world. That was also Chen Guang's world. The people in the play all came to life, and what we saw was not the play, but the life of the people in the play. Chapter 955. When the first act finally came to an end and the 3.5-hour-long play came to a short rest, the audience was silent. Everyone's mind was constantly replaying the countless details of the first act that had just been played out. The drama lovers who had already watched Thunderstorm were wondering why they had never realized that Thunderstorm had so many connotations. After watching today's first act, they felt that the movie version and the live version of the drama that they had watched before were not even worth mentioning. The audience who came purely for Chen Guang had no understanding of Thunderstorm before, but this did not stop them from being completely immersed in it. As a classic that had been selected as a textbook, although not many people had seen this play, almost everyone knew the name of this classic. It was just that the predecessors thought that these were antiques that could not keep up with the times and belonged to the old things that had already been eliminated, so they were not interested in them. But because they had never seen it before, this time they felt it particularly deeply. Only then did they understand that the old things that they had always been against had such meanings. Although they were just watching a play, they experienced the extremely real sadness and joy of the people in the play. As for the backstage, the actors who had appeared on the stage in the first act were all sitting quietly in a corner, no one talking to anyone. Until now, these people still had not left the play. The complicated personality child Zhou Ping was still sitting there, as if wherever he went, the world of Thunderstorm would cover that place. Even Yang Shi, who was supposed to seize the time to talk to others about the play, subconsciously wanted to find a pipe and put it in his mouth. He himself had unknowingly returned to that era, and had become a passerby living in the play. He had completely forgotten his duty, and the others had completely forgotten to review the script. But this was actually meaningless, because these actors had even forgotten who they were. When they stood on the stage, in that scene and environment, they did not need any memory, they would naturally say the lines that their character and position required. On the stage, they were not just copying simple lines. Their entire thinking had completely become that of the characters in the original, Thunderstorm, written by Chow Yu. After a short break, the second act continued. It was not only the Wujing Theater that was quiet, but also countless audiences in front of their TVs and computers all over the country. She had originally planned to watch a farce, but she had never imagined that she would actually find true emotion in this farce. The more sensitive audience members couldn't help but put themselves in the shoes of the audience. The more rational audience was surprised. They were particularly puzzled. They had seen so many classic movies and TV shows over the years, but never had they been so deeply touched by the screen on that small square stage like today. Was it because he had become more emotional, or was it the after effect of accidentally drinking too much coffee before getting off work? It was undeniable that Chen Guang's acting was really good. It was perfect, beyond imagination and impeccable. But in the end, this was just a play. Alright, don't let your imagination run wild. The second act has begun. The audience once again focused their attention on the screen. Before he knew it, the second act had ended. The third and fourth act. The stage was in chaos because of Sifeng and Zhou Chang's deaths, and Zhou Ping's suicide. Everyone knew that this seemingly chaotic scene was a story acted out by the actors. It was clearly a stage that had been set up, but everyone still felt that what they saw was really happening. The chaos on the stage formed a strong contrast with the quietness off the stage. Everyone clenched their fists tightly and held their breath. Xiaozong forgot to look down at the latest online number sent by the company's group chat. The PD in charge of the live broadcast of Mango TV forgot to direct the cut. The employees of Tianguang Agency also forgot to cheer for their boss's perfect performance. Big Beard Deng had long forgotten his worries at the beginning of the play. Although he was not completely immersed in the play like others, he had, after all, directed Thunderstorm when he was young. Compared to others, he could use a calmer and more professional gaze to judge today's play. But now, he felt that he didn't need to say anything. Chen Guang's version of Thunderstorm had already completely surpassed all the classics of the past, and even surpassed his own inexperienced work when he was young. Big Beard knew that this was not Yang Shi's credit. It was all because of Chen Guang's perfect performance. Before Chen Guang appeared on the stage, today's Thunderstorm was at best a young director's passable work. The rehearsal time was only a short week. This was already the result of Yang Shi and several other leading actors' perfect performance. They couldn't ask for more. But the moment Chen Guang appeared on the stage, the play was completely sublimated. Chen Guang made this stage play follow the script, but it was higher than the script. He asked Chow Yu to write a script that was higher than life. Big Beard Deng leaned back and reached out to ask Old Ma, the stage manager next to him, for a cigarette. He lit it and took a deep breath. He, who had quit smoking for too long, accidentally coughed and tears fell from the corners of his eyes. After a long time, he let out a long sigh and said, "I finally understand what little Yang told me before." Old Ma asked, "What did Xiao Yang say?" "He said that Chen Guang was born to be an actor." Old Ma wanted to nod subconsciously, but he immediately remembered, "But when he acted in Jiang Shan last time?" Big Beard Deng thought for a moment and said, "You can probably understand it this way. Einstein was not born to solve calculus. Although Chen Guang is a genius, he has never been exposed to acting before he acted in Jiang Shan, so it makes sense that it was difficult for him to get started at that time. But then he suddenly completed it perfectly, didn't he? At the time, I thought that he had finally hit the jackpot, so I quickly passed it. Now that I think about it, he probably used only 2 or 3 hours to completely awaken from a newbie who didn't know how to act at all into a real top-notch actor." Old Ma nodded. "The younger generation will surpass us in time." Big Beard shook his head again. No, not every younger generation has Chen Guang's ability. It's not that the younger generation is surpassing us in time, but that our level is too low to understand a real genius. Old Ma asked, Director Deng, it's okay that my level is low, but you can't be low too, right? Big Beard Deng smiled bitterly. I'll take Einstein as an example. His primary school math teacher can't compare with him, right? Old Ma didn't say anything more. Big Beard had no problem mocking himself, so there was no need for him to add another stab to his wound. As a well-known director, he should be able to tell whether a person had the talent to become an actor or not with a few glances. However, Big Beard had questioned Chen Guang for so long, which was simply damaging to his reputation. In the West Mountain villas, Jiang Yage and Jin Shiyue were also staring with their eyes wide open. No one could understand the incomparable regret in their hearts. If they had known that Chen Guang had this ability, even if they had to stop filming in Yanjing, they would have gone to Wujing to act with him. As for those haters who had slandered Chen Guang online or in their social circles, they were still breaking their promises this time. Those who had bet with their colleagues had already begun to think of a reason to skip work tomorrow. They would hide for as long as they could. Those who had bet with their classmates took out their mobile phones and planned to send a text message to their teachers to find a way to ask for sick leave. As for those who had bet with their wives or others, they didn't even have a place to hide. These days, there were all kinds of media outlets that had published articles questioning and criticizing Chen Guang on the internet. The fast ones had already published a new draft, while the slow ones were gnashing their teeth and writing. There was no doubt that the limelight of these media outlets didn't need to be looked at. They must have made a 180-degree turn. The media had never cared about moral integrity. They would follow the direction of the wind and write the draft. It didn't matter if they were scolded as fence-sitters. As long as what was written was enough to attract attention, who would care about face? Finally, under the attention of thousands of people, Yang Shi walked out from the backstage. He led all the main cast members and gently bowed to the audience below the stage. This scene of the most high-profile stage play in the past 10 years officially ended. At this time, Yang Shi didn't have the mood to care about the cheers of the audience below. He was just glad that his choice to bite the bullet and come to Wujing from Yanjing was not wrong. Even if the one who could let people remember today's thunderstorm must be Chen Guang, and when people mention today in the future, they will only say that this is Chen Guang's version of thunderstorm, but it doesn't matter. No one can change the fact that the director is me. I was finally able to hitch a ride with Chen Guang just like Chairman Chang from Bamboo. Although there were many flaws at the beginning of the first act, no one can change the fact that this will be the most classic thunderstorm in history. In the small theater, even though all the main cast members had left after the curtain call, and everyone knew that this kind of show would not have an encore, hundreds of audience members still stood up and applauded for a long time. Fang Tianyu finally came back to his senses and clapped heavily. I knew President Chen would definitely be fine. Lu Xiaoyang, who was beside him, rolled his eyes. You knew again. That's not what you said before. Fang Tianyu snorted. You can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. When did I ever doubt President Chen's ability? But you were clearly cursing him in your heart. You are framing me. You despicable person, don't even think about fighting for favor with me. You said it. You've said that shameless word at last. President Chang, he just said the word fighting for favor, right? You heard it, right? Chang Xiaozong, who was at the side, was speechless towards Chen Guang's two subordinates who had no moral integrity but were quite capable. Sure enough, if the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. Like boss like employee. Isn't this a bit inappropriate? Forget it, Chen Guang doesn't know anyway. Chapter 956. Chang Xiaozong finally had the mood to look at the online viewer report from the company. After reading it, he grinned again. Although the number of viewers did not exceed the previous peak, which was less than 17 million, the proportion of new registered users was extremely high, more than 30%. This meant that in just one night, Bamboo had nearly 6 million new registered users. This was much higher than the number of viewers during Chen Guang's previous live broadcasts. To achieve this number through advertising, they would have to spend at least hundreds of millions of yuan. However, this was only the power of Chen Guang's nuclear weapon tonight. At the same time, the number of viewers in Chen Guang's personal live broadcast room increased to 1.6 million. Including the slow increase previously, it had reached 6.7 million. This was an unparalleled number of viewers in the world. Chang Xiaozong analyzed that the reason for this phenomenon should be that the skills Chen Guang displayed this time were different from the past. It was a performance ability that he had never really dabbled in before. This officially transformed him from an atypical internet celebrity to an artistic star. This time, he not only attracted those fans who only wanted to see strange things, but also those who usually paid more attention to movies, TV shows, or variety shows in the entertainment circle were also attracted to him. The target audience had changed, which directly led to the increase in the number of new registered users. Xiao Tsong could not help but secretly feel lucky. Fortunately, he believed in his brother's ability as always and did not hesitate to offer a price of 10 million. Although some of his competitors also offered the same price, he still managed to snatch it by relying on his relationship with his old partner. Mango reckoned that they had also made a lot of money. Just based on the advertisements they aired during the breaks in between, the 11 million they invested in the licensing fee was more than enough to cover their capital. However, they would definitely regret it later. Fang Tianyu had learned to be very petty from Chen Guang. He would definitely complain to Chen Guang about Mango's intention to go back on their word. It would be difficult for them to take advantage of this in the future. Xiao Tsong's guess was right. At this time, the upper management of Mango were as anxious as ants on a hot pan. Who would have thought that Chen Guang's weekly drama could be so perfect? At the end of the show, the ratings even broke 5%. It was even more popular than the finale of the TV station's Ace variety show. One had to know that there was almost no pre-publicity effect. In the past, whenever Mango TV wanted to do a variety show, it would be bombarded with advertisements a few months before it started broadcasting. If they had the same time this time, it would be too good to be true. But now, they couldn't be happy, and it was even more awkward. If it was just a normal success, they wouldn't feel any pressure. However, the real-time statistics were so shocking. Their previous attempt to break the contract was ruined. The job of repairing the relationship fell to the manager who had called Fang Tianyu. At this moment, he, who had just finished watching a play on the television, just wanted to sing a song. Why are my eyes filled with tears? Because I love this land too deeply. My fate is even worse than the people in the movie. At least those people could still fight and fight. At least Zhou Ping had the courage to take a bullet. I could only cower. Don't talk to me. From now on, I'm going to roam the pugilistic world. My nickname is Scapegoat. No one cared how miserable the manager of Mango TV was at this moment, but there were so many people backstage in the small theater who were also extremely embarrassed. At this moment, Chen Guang was sitting lazily in the dressing room, letting the stupid makeup artist help him remove his makeup. Sitting next to him were a few lead actors who were removing their makeup. These people were so excited that their faces were flushed. They had no idea what had happened to them. They had been acting well, but they had suddenly become completely different people. Now that the curtain had fallen, they had finally left the show. However, every bit of what had happened on the stage was clearly engraved in their minds. They could understand it themselves without anyone telling them. They had really completed an unbelievable performance. It was as if they had become someone else and lived again. Although the time was short, it was deeply remembered. This was a precious experience that was enough to make their acting skills qualitatively change. Finally, Hu Delan, who was sitting next to Chen Guang, was the first to not be able to hold it in. He signaled to the makeup artist to stop first, then turned to look at Chen Guang and said in a trembling voice, "Mr. Chen, I really don't know how to thank you for your great kindness. Anyway, thank you." For a veteran actor of his age, it was easier said than done to improve his acting skills. Now, just by acting in a play and even receiving 5 times the salary, he could improve his acting skills by leaps and bounds. How could he not be happy? How could he not be grateful from the bottom of his heart? Chen Guang turned his head slightly to look at Hu Delin and smiled indifferently. Mr. Hu, you're too kind. I'm just doing what I should do. He did not mention what had happened before. At this point, there was no need to continue mentioning it. All of them understood that since he dared to come up with this play, dared not to rehearse, and even dared to read the script 4 hours before going on stage, of course, he had come prepared. As the saying goes, summer insects cannot talk about ice. There was no need for a godlike existence to explain too much to mortals. At this moment, he seemed so enigmatic, so steady, and so dignified. He was simply awesome. Hu Delin nodded repeatedly. Understood. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Chen. With Hu Delin taking the lead, Yin Fei and the other members of the cast also expressed their gratitude to Chen Guang from afar. There were even some who wanted to refund their salary, but they were all rejected by Chen Guang. After all, he wasn't lacking in money. Seeing how generous Chen Guang was and how he was like a master, the actors who had looked down on him felt extremely ashamed of their inferiority. This was a true powerhouse who could control his own fate in his work and life. Look at his magnanimity. He was indifferent and did not bother about trifles. From time to time, everyone would recall Chen Guang's seemingly casual words in the afternoon. At that time, they thought he was treating it as a joke. Only now did they understand that he had a card up his sleeve. There was only one person who could not sit still. As one of the main cast members, she should have been the first to remove her makeup, but at this moment, she hid far away in a corner and did not dare to come over, letting others go first. It was none other than Shi Lu, who had made the most noise in the afternoon. Although others had disdained Chen Guang in their hearts, they had at least restrained themselves on the surface. But Shi Lu had openly flipped out. Although she had unwillingly apologized to him after the incident, now that she thought about it, it was not an apology at all. It was clearly adding fuel to the fire. That little trick that she had hidden in her heart, how could she hide it from Master Chen? He must have completely seen through me. I have always blamed him wrongly. Thinking about how I had said so many bad things about him in the past few days, I felt terrible. No wonder he was so conceited. No wonder he said he understood our feelings at that time. In fact, it was because his realm and personality were already at a level beyond our understanding. He was already standing on another level of acting. His realm could not be expressed in words, or even if he could say it, we would not be able to understand or believe it. He did not even bother to explain it to us ordinary people. Because he knew that no matter how much he said, it was better to take us to the stage. Not only could he put on a good show himself, but he could even bring all of us into it. He was God. The God of acting. But I had always doubted God's ability. So embarrassing. What should I do now? Should I go up and sincerely apologize to him again, and then say thank you to him like Sister Yin Fei did? But why can't my feet move? Shi Lu paced back and forth in the same place, rubbing her hands so hard that a layer of skin almost peeled off. No one was more embarrassed than her at that moment. As a newcomer actress who was determined to achieve something in the performing arts, Shi Lu knew that it was reasonable for her to apologize to Chen Guang. But as a young girl, she could not let go of her pride. I say, Xiao Lu, why don't you go up and say a few words? Chen Guang is only a little over 20 years old, he is younger than you. Look, he actually doesn't care about you at all. Shi Lu was surprised. Ah. He is so young. Young, she nodded and snorted. What else can he do? Don't you know that he hasn't even graduated from university? A few days ago, I said in front of you that he would rather attend classes than rehearse. Didn't you hear me? Shi Lu blushed. At that time, I was only thinking about him in my heart and did not pay attention to what you said, Director Yang. Alright, now that the show is over, you may not have a chance to interact with him in the future. You decide whether you want to apologize to him or not. Anyway, I think it is reasonable for you to say something." Shilu was silent. Her mind could not help but recall the scene of her and Chen Guang arguing in the afternoon. Now she finally understood. At that time, she thought that Chen Guang did not know what to do, but in fact, she was the one who did not know what to do. At that time, she felt that he did not care about the play, but in fact, he had already seen through everything. When she was making a scene, Chen Guang's expression did not change. It was not that he did not know what to do, but it was because he was looking at her with the mentality of an adult. He was not joking, he really did care about this play. I was so unreasonable at that time, but he did not get angry at me at all. Compared to him, I am as insignificant as a childish urchin. Finally, she mustered up her courage and walked quickly in the direction of the makeup table. What? He left? He did not attend the celebration? Shilu, who had pounced on nothing, stared blankly at the makeup artist who had already removed the makeup for the next person. She felt a little uncomfortable. Did he say anything when he left? Not yet. He did not ask about me? No. Yang Shi jumped out from behind. Shilu, perhaps in his heart, the matter of you contradicting him is not worth mentioning at all. You should stop worrying about it. How can he do this? I am so sad, how can he not care about it at all? Yang Shi coughed lightly. What's so strange about this? Because he is Chen Guang. Sigh. Shilu felt melancholy again. However, although the show on stage was over, the storm on the internet had just begun. Chapter 957. Just as Yang Shi had said, Chen Guang didn't take Shilu's matter seriously at all. After removing his makeup, he drove back to school. If it was before, Chen Guang would probably be interested in discussing acting and life with Shilu just because she was pretty. He would then criticize her for judging people based on their looks. But now, there was still a pool of mud on his butt that couldn't be wiped clean. Who would be interested in serving this unruly little girl at a glance? He hadn't even figured out her situation yet. If something really happened, with his character, Shilu would definitely be in trouble if she got hold of something against him. Initially, Chen Guang had planned to go back to his dorm and have a good night's sleep. The next morning, he would pretend that nothing had happened and continue doing what he was supposed to do. However, he couldn't rest after he got back to his dorm. He was forcefully dragged out by Lin Jingwei and the others, saying that they wanted to celebrate for him. It's just a small matter. Is there a need to celebrate it? Chen Guang struggled to get up. Lin Jingwei and Xiong held him down on both sides. Xiong chuckled. You can't just think about yourself. We've been cheering you on so much that our voices are going hoarse. Aren't you going to treat us to a meal to celebrate? Lin Jingwei pulled him back with all his might. Yeah, hurry up. Gao Yan class rep's son should be at the school gate by now. They're going too. What else? Otherwise, we wouldn't have dragged you out in such a hurry. Wouldn't tomorrow's dinner be the same? Chen Guang stood up awkwardly. He didn't want to go out at this time, but it wasn't right to make the girls wait for him. All right. Let's go. It's my treat. Eat whatever you want. Oh yeah, it's almost midnight. The school should be closing soon, right? Bai Nyangzi urged. Just close it. Brother Guang, when did you become such a coward? Climb over the wall. Coward your sister. Let's go. On the same day, the god of acting, Chen Guang, who had been shining brightly on the stage, turned around and prepared to eat skewers at a barbecue stall outside the school with a few classmates. After eating skewers, they still had to climb over the wall to return to school. Chen Guang was probably the most famous celebrity in history. When the four of them arrived at the school gate, it was almost 12 o'clock. Sun Xiaoxuan and Gao Ye were struggling to explain something to the security guards. Sun Xiaoxuan looked back and saw Chen Guang walking towards them. He quickly pulled Chen Guang over and said sneakily, "They won't let us out now. They said they're going to close the school gate. Don't show your face. It won't be good if someone sees you." Chen Guang patted Sun Xiaoxuan's shoulder indifferently. "What are you afraid of? We're just going out for a barbecue. It's not like we can't see the light of day." "Hey, you can't. What's wrong with that? It's not like we're university classmates. Going out for a barbecue will make the headlines. If I'm so afraid of doing anything, I won't be able to go out in the future." As he spoke, he strode forward. Gaoya was still arguing with the security guards. "Just let us go out and buy something. We'll be right back. We won't climb over the wall, really. Look at us, two delicate little girls. We don't look like we can climb over the wall. We have a few boys with us, but that's because we're worried that it's not safe for us to go out in the middle of the night. So, we asked our classmates to be our bodyguards. Hey, why are you like this? There's still 5 minutes before 12 o'clock. Why can't you let us go out? Isn't the school's rule that we can go out before closing time? You're asking me which school I'm from? What? You want to complain to my school's leader? So what if I tell you? I'm not going to change my name. I'm Wen from the Department of International Trade in the School of Finance and Economics." Chen Guang was hiding leisurely and eavesdropping on Gao Ye's argument with the security guards. When he heard the last sentence, he couldn't sit still anymore. "Oh my God, you're not going to change your name? How dare you say that?" He quickly moved forward and blocked Gao Ye behind him. He smiled at the security guards and said, I'm sorry. We really have something urgent to do outside the school. We have to go out and deal with it. Could you please make an exception? I'm Chen Guang from the School of Construction Loop. This is my classmate, Gaoya from the School of Construction Loop. She was just talking nonsense. Just ignore her." Before Chen Guang could finish his sentence, the security guard's mouth opened wider and wider. Chen Guang. Chen Guang was speechless. "Didn't I just introduce myself? Why do you look like you've just seen a ghost when you just recognized me?" The security guard's colleague, who was sitting behind him and looking at his phone, stood up immediately and rushed forward excitedly. "Chen Guang." This guy looked like he was looking at something strange. "Oh, it's me. We don't have much time. Shall we go out now?" Guard A, who had just argued with Gaoya, nodded. Okay. Mr. Chen, take care. Although we have to close at night, we're on duty all night. Let us know when you come back, and we'll open the door for you." Guard B, who was playing with his phone, patted his colleague with a meaningful look. Go. It'll be a miracle if Mr. Chen comes back. Ah, Mr. Chen, take care. I hope you have a good time. The hotel above Qin Yishian has a nice environment. It's awesome. Chen Guang rolled his eyes. Awesome my ass. Let's go. He waved his hand, and the others followed him out of the door. Even after walking out of the door for a long time, the others were still in a daze. In fact, it was already past 12 o'clock, and they didn't expect to come out so easily. Walking on the road outside the school, Chen Guang laughed. Now you know how awesome I am? I know. You're awesome, my brother. I'm so proud to know you. Gaoya, who had failed to shift the blame, rolled her eyes and complained. Sun Xiaoxuan, who was holding her hand, covered his mouth and giggled. The others wanted to praise him, but since he was so cocky, they decided not to. Otherwise, he would go to heaven. There were pros and cons to being famous. At times like this, people could use their face cards, and if they knew you, they would show some respect. The fruit of face was super useful, and anyone who used it would know. When they arrived at the Golden Campus Square, most of the barbecue stalls were about to close up. Luckily, the owner of the stall that they frequented had not closed the shutter door yet. The poor owner couldn't just give up on his business, so he ignored his wife and children, who were waiting at home, and started to work bitterly. However, he was not without benefits. The knowledgeable owner recognized Chen Guang at first glance, and he mustered up the courage to ask for a picture with him. "Mr. Chen, can I print this picture and hang it on the wall?" The owner's face was red, and he was rubbing the skewers with grease on his hands. No one knew if his face was red from nervousness, or from the heat of the skewers. Chen Guang stuffed the skewers into his mouth. "No problem. Thank you, Mr. Chen. Thank you, Mr. Chen. Today's meal is on me." The owner of the barbecue stall was very excited. He was only a small stall, and he had heard that it was not a problem to ask for a picture with a celebrity. However, if someone wanted to hang the picture in his stall, they would ask for a portrait fee, and it would cost hundreds of thousands. He was just trying to say it casually, and he didn't expect a big shot like Chen Guang to agree. He didn't expect Chen Guang to be so generous. Chen Guang laughed. "You're too kind, boss. It's not a big deal, but you can't pay for this meal. I told my classmate that it's my treat. Next time, next time." The owner of the barbecue stall didn't have an easy life. He had to wake up early and work late. With Chen Guang's appetite, he could easily eat up 1,000 or so there was no need for him to pay. The owner still wanted to argue, but Sun Xiaoxuan, who was sitting next to Chen Guang, said, "Boss, you don't have to be so polite with him. His sneeze is enough for us to eat for a year." The owner was touched. "Then, Mr. Chen, what title should I write on the picture?" Chen Guang thought for a while. "That's easy. You write, famous linguist, Dota folk god, world's top racer, pencil engraving artist, world arm wrestling champion, world's #1 piano master, world's champion of darts, winner of the IATA Hero Medal, and world's top performing artist. Chen Guang is here to guide the barbecue." Bai Nyangzi almost spat out his coke onto the plate. "Damn. Boss, this piece of paper is not enough." Xiong gave him a thumbs up. "Do you still want to write, most handsome male god of Jinhuan College?" Lin Jingwei coughed twice. "You remind me of Biao Bro, who is only one character away from your name. Are you going to print so many titles on your business card?" Gaoya complained. "If you don't do it for us, we won't even know that you have done so many things in the past few months." Sun Xiaoxuan's eyes lit up as he looked at Chen Guang. In the past, he liked Chen Guang's stubbornness, his sense of responsibility, and now, he liked Chen Guang's talent. He was like a bottomless pit. The closer you got to him, the more you couldn't bear to look away from him, and the more you were attracted to him. In this world, was there anything he couldn't do? Sun Xiaoxuan thought back to when he was watching the live broadcast with the other students in his dorm room today. Those unreserved girls clicked their tongues in amazement. He was actually quite proud of himself. "I, Sun Xiaoxuan, have always been a timid kid. But this time, I've got the guts. At the very least, I've gotten ahead of him in class." The performing arts majors on the school forum were screaming and wailing, lamenting that Chen Guang didn't give them a way out. The guys in the foreign languages faculty also looked like they had nothing left to live for. This guy was worse than nothing. Although he hadn't attended any elective classes yet, it was said that the tutor of the 8 minor languages he had chosen had already given him full marks in advance, saying that he didn't have the courage to deduct a mark from him. What was even more outrageous were the girls from the School of Foreign Languages. Although these girls were not arrogant, they were not easy to deal with. Not everyone had a chance to get close to them. They would rather stay single until the end of time than to force themselves to be with someone else. But now, what did they say? They actually made a joint post on the school forum. "Chen Guang, your wives are asking you to go back to class in the foreign languages faculty. The moral degeneration of the world is getting worse day by day. People's hearts are not what they used to be, moral degeneration, and there's no bottom line. We understand that you want him to come to class. Frankly speaking, We also want to know why he is so awesome, how his brain works, and whether he has some special learning posture that can make his learning efficiency so high that it makes people's hair stand on end. If he can teach them a thing or two, of course, it's something that everyone dreams of. But isn't it too much for your wives to ask him to come back to class? And where's the bottom line? Where's your moral integrity? How do you want us, the boys in the foreign languages faculty, to raise our heads in the future? The corner of the wall was dug up to the ground, and it was even dug up with the Lanshan excavator. When this group of poor boys went to the girls to ask for justice, they were once again blocked by the girls' words. The original words of the girls were roughly like this. Don't think about these useless things all day long. Learning skills is more useful than anything else. As long as you can learn a little bit of his martial arts, not to mention being his concubine, it's not impossible for you to be his meat toilet. You guys learn from others, but you don't have much skill, but your mind has a lot of crooked ideas. What do you think we are? Raised by your family? This group of boys was really angry, but they really couldn't refute, so they could only vent their anger on Qinguang on the internet. Sun Xiaoshuan didn't care about these inexplicable rivals in love. If he was really that easy to get, I would have to thank the heavens. While everyone was eating skewers, all kinds of articles were posted on the internet. The genius actor who subverts the era, Qinguang. Playing with tickets to a new realm, where is Qinguang's limit? An in-depth analysis of Qinguang's version of Thunderstorm, from the details to see the classic. The limit of the realm, how a person can affect the whole stage with his own strength. From another world on the screen, the real Thunderstorm. News articles with such titles appeared in countless media outlets, and were also reposted by countless self-media outlets, and shared by countless people with their friends and family. What was even more unexpected was that Deng Xiaojiang, who had always stayed out of these entertainment matters, also posted an article on his social media account. He said, looking at Qinguang's version of Thunderstorm, as a director who once directed Thunderstorm, I feel like I am a toddler learning to walk. After a while, he actually posted again, seeing the words is like a face, seeing the shadow is like a person, seeing a person is like seeing a world, recalling Thunderstorm feelings. Big Beard Deng was the first famous director to come out to post, and not long after, another famous director, Shi Changhe, also posted a long article, Subversion Under Prejudice. Not every great actor comes from the accumulation of classics. Such a young actor, he was born great, only lacks a stage. Not long after, Shi Lu, one of the main creators of Qinguang's version of Thunderstorm, also posted a long article on her Weibo and Qinguang. She first publicly apologized to Qinguang, and then from the perspective of a personal participant, with the tone of an experienced person, she talked about her experience in the whole play, which was reposted and recognized by other main creators of the play. After a while, another main creator of Thunderstorm also stood up. He deeply repented, and publicly admitted that the person who had been leaking information to the media for the past few days was actually him. He did not even dare to ask for forgiveness, but he really could not bear the incomparable pain in his heart, so he chose to be open and honest. How long does a young actor need to prove his acting skills? Perhaps it was a classic movie, or perhaps it was a heavyweight and credible award, or perhaps it was a popular TV series that was praised by everyone. But no one had ever thought that there would be such a person on stage for the first time. With just one play, 3.5 hours, he was able to turn the tide of public opinion that was ridiculing him, slandering him, and ridiculing him, into worship in an instant. But Qinguang did it, effortlessly. He even started to figure out the script 4 hours before he went on stage. But his success not only did not let people see the art of acting clearly, but it also made people worship this art from the bottom of their hearts. But this was the biggest advantage of Qinguang. No matter how much trouble there was outside, he was still himself. Countless people's gazes were focused on him, and countless people were cheering and jumping for his subversive performance, feeling that he was a celestial being. He was walking out of the barbecue stall with a few of his classmates. Stepping under the moonlight outside of Wujing University, he was joking with Lin Jingwei and the others from time to time. Otherwise, he would use his broken gong-like voice to sing loudly. He was changing himself every moment, and he was also affecting the world, but in a sense, he had never changed. He had the calmest heart, never moved by external things. Chapter 958. Are we really going to wake up the two guards? Standing under the school wall, Gaoye looked at her watch. It's already past 2 in the morning. I'm a little embarrassed. Bai Fan climbed up the wall like a monkey. It's not worth it. We've climbed this wall hundreds of times. I can do it even with my eyes closed. He smiled proudly and jumped down. Whoosh. He was so pleased with himself that his clothes got caught on the sharp awl of the fence. He looked like a piece of cured meat waiting to be dried in the winter. F***ck. My clothes. Bai Fan screamed in a low voice. Chen Guang and the others were overjoyed. You should thank the heavens. You should be thankful that I didn't strip you naked. Chen Guang picked up a branch from the ground and poked Bai Fan's butt. Brother Guang, don't mess around. I'm panicking. I'm trying to poke you down. Bear 2 roared without any sense of propriety, let me do it. Then, out of nowhere, he took out a big stick as thick as a calf and poked it at Lady White's buttocks. The white snake screamed. Bramble, it broke free from the sharp awl and fell down with its legs between its legs. Fortunately, although it was small, it was agile and landed on the ground with its legs between its legs like a gymnast. Full marks. The others were startled by Nyangzi and Xiong-er's actions. They looked left and right to make sure no one was around before they calmed down. Some things were really strange. No matter how high one's status in the underworld was, they would still feel uneasy when they were doing something sneaky like climbing over a wall. Gaoye whispered, stop howling. What if someone saw you? Wouldn't it be embarrassing? Bai Fan, you're such a noob. As she spoke, she grabbed the railing with both hands and flipped over in no time, landing beautifully on the ground. Only Lin Jingwei, who had raised his palms to support her bottom, was left staring at the air. He was most afraid of the air suddenly becoming quiet. Chen Guang patted his shoulder sympathetically. This was the only disadvantage of having a tough girlfriend. He wanted to take advantage of her, but he didn't even have the chance to take advantage of her. Next, Xiong-er and Lin Jingwei flipped over one after the other, leaving Chen Guang and Sun Xiaoxuan outside. A few people inside turned around and Gaoye urged, hurry up, we still have to attend the second professional class tomorrow morning. Sun Xiaoxuan nervously glanced at the big hole in Bai Nyangzi's clothes and said in a low voice, I'm a little scared. Gaoye rolled her eyes. Don't bother if you're afraid. Didn't the security guard say that the hotel above Qingyaxian is quite good? Lin Jingwei nodded. Yeah, that's right, especially the love room. It's awesome. Gaoye smacked him on the forehead. Who asked you to tell me? Tell me. No one will think you're mute if you don't talk. No matter how awesome you are. How awesome are you? Sun Xiaoxuan blushed, and Chen Guang rolled his eyes. He turned around to look at Sun Xiaoxuan, intending to help Lin Jingwei out of the situation. However, Chen Guang never expected that his heart would thump when he looked at Sun Tao's face. Although class monitor Sun's face was red, his eyes were glowing. He didn't know why, but he was a little flustered and felt sorry for her. Forget it, I'll give in first. I'm not in the mood for that right now. Sun Xiaoxuan saw that Chen Guang was looking at her with a thoughtful look on his face, and thought that he was really considering taking her to do something at this time. She wanted to be reserved, but when the words came out of her mouth, she said, I really don't dare to flip. My clothes are looser than Bai Fan's. It would be troublesome if they got caught. Hearing those words, Chen Guang was shocked. Since when did class monitor Sun become so bold? She was obviously implying something. He couldn't let her continue, so Chen Guang decided to send her over. He coughed lightly and said, it's just a small case. Do you want to see the power of a martial arts master? As he said this, he put his arm around Sun Xiaoxuan's waist. According to his plan, he would be able to take her from one side of the fence to the other side in a whoosh, just like in the movies. Unexpectedly, Sun Xiaoxuan's body softened when he put his arm around her waist. Her face turned even redder, and she subconsciously put her arms around his waist. Almost half of her body was pressed against his. There are a lot of people here. Don't say that. I'm embarrassed. Chen Guang, who was about to take a breath, almost lost his breath. What are you thinking? Sun Xiaoxuan looked back at him. Although her face was red, she still plucked up the courage to ask, I know you are very powerful, but it doesn't matter. I can do it. Her voice was getting lower and lower, almost like the buzz of a mosquito. If it weren't for Chen Guang's sharp ears, he wouldn't have been able to hear her clearly. The people behind the fence had already turned around and were about to leave. Gaoya giggled, Go, really go. We will definitely keep this a secret for you. Girls can't be kept at home when they grow up. Chen Guang finally came to his senses. I'm not talking about how powerful you are. I'm not talking about how powerful you think I am, okay? You're quite open-minded. What are you thinking about? That's what I'm talking about. He couldn't delay any longer. Otherwise, the situation would get out of control. Chen Guang tightened his grip on Sun Xiaoxuan's waist. He hugged her tightly, and his feet bounced off the ground. Lin Jingwei, Gaoya, Bai Fan, and Xiong Jinka had just turned around and were about to continue teasing them. Chen Guang held Sun Xiaoxuan with one hand and lifted her up into the air like a rocket. The two of them rose until they were about 3 meters above the ground before they stopped their upward momentum. Just as they passed over the railing, they gently landed on the ground inside. Half of Sun Xiaoxuan's body was still hanging on Chen Guang. She blinked her eyes, not understanding what was going on. The others were also dumbfounded. Ah! 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 The slow-witted Sun Xiaoxuan finally opened his mouth and screamed. Fortunately, Chen Guang moved quickly and covered her mouth. Don't scream. It's not a big deal. This is Qinggong. It's just Qinggong. It's like what you see in TV shows every day. After a long while, he finally calmed Sun Xiaoxuan down. The others had already rushed back and looked at him as if he was a monster. My brother, you're amazing. Where did you learn it? The white lady was startled and flustered. Xiong rushed up and kneeled on the ground. My teacher. Please accept my disciple's bow. Lin Jingwei already knew about his skills. In order to cooperate with the others, he could only pretend to be shocked. However, with the precedent of Xiong instantly acknowledging a master in front of him, Lin Jingwei was actually somewhat moved. However, he knew more than ordinary people. He understood that wanting to learn inner strength at his age was practically a pipe dream. In the end, he endured and didn't embarrass himself. Gaoya squinted her eyes and moved closer. You've accidentally let something slip again. Chen Guang, just how big a secret are you hiding? Tell the truth and you'll be lenient. Resist. Sun Xiaoxuan had been released by Chen Guang. He turned back and looked at Chen Guang expectantly. She had wanted to ask Gaoya the same question, but she was too embarrassed to ask. Flicking his newly grown hair, Chen Guang continued, It looks like I have no choice but to admit it now. What? Everyone looked at him eagerly, feeling that what he was about to say next might be a big secret. Actually, Chen Guang purposely dragged out his voice. Everyone's eyes widened and their breathing quickened. They were all focused, afraid to miss a word. Actually, I'm from planet Namek. I'm a prince. F***ck off. Go away. Fine, I was just talking nonsense. What I'm about to say is the truth. I advise you not to seek your own death. Have you guys seen Frozen Hero? Actually, I'm Zhang Wuji, the leader of the Ming cult who has been frozen for 1,000 years. After I woke up, I went to university to reintegrate into modern society. Kill him. Let's beat this scumbag to death. While they were fooling around, the patrolling campus police finally noticed the commotion. They walked over with their flashlights, yelling as they walked, "What are you doing? Which school are you from?" Seeing this, the crowd cried out in alarm. Chen Guang carried Sun Xiaoxuan on his back and took the lead in running. The others also shrank back, not bothering to ask about Chen Guang's background. They ran after him. The campus police pretended to chase them for a while, but eventually gave up. He could tell from afar that these people were students, so there was no need to chase them. The campus police sometimes looked fierce, but in fact, they usually didn't really want to do anything to these naughty students. After a while, Sun Xiaoxuan and Gaoya were sent back to the girls' dormitory, while Chen Guang and the other three returned to the boys' dormitory. On the way back, Lin Jingwei teased, "Brother Guang, you're really something. How could you let go of class rep's son with such a good opportunity?" Chen Guang turned his head to look at him and whispered, "I'm not good enough for her." Lin Jingwei was stunned. "Huh? What do you mean?" Shrugging his shoulders, Chen Guang pointed at his left chest and continued, "You understand me. There are some things that I like to flaunt, but there are also some things that I can't bring up. I'm a complicated person. Truth be told, I've already tried my best to restrain myself, but I would always encounter unexpected situations." After returning to the dormitory, Xiong brought up the matter of becoming Chen Guang's disciple, but Chen Guang quickly dismissed the idea. In fact, he could have given Bramble a custom-made training in the world within a cup, just like how he had trained Xuelin. However, as a well-trained elite, Xuelin's survival rate was only 37%. Xiong looked tall and strong, but he was just an ordinary person after all. His willpower couldn't be compared to Xuelin's. If he was sent to the training, his survival rate would be less than 10%. As for letting people like Xiong, Bai Nyangzi, and Lin Jingwei build the foundation from scratch, Chen Guang felt that it was better to save it. Even though he was talented, he still relied on the Holy Grail to make a comeback. Otherwise, even with Wenwen's endless supply of herbs, he wouldn't be able to get a blister for at least a decade or two. Back then, when Wenwen imparted the painting scroll to him, didn't she also know that he wouldn't be able to get any results without years of hard work, so she planned to use this technique to kill him? Of course, Chen Guang had also mastered some techniques in the Jinwu continent, such as the Virgin Boy Divine technique. However, even if it was the Virgin Boy Divine technique, one had to have a basic physical body before they could start cultivating it. These young lads were a little old, and it was too late to start building the foundation now. Of course, Chen Guang wasn't in a hurry. The heavenly Holy Grail was only at the one-line sky level. When it was upgraded to the three-line cloud sky, there might be a way to be safe. If he really had the chance, the philanthropic Chen Guang said that he would have all his relatives, friends, and friends. As long as he was on good terms with them, he would have them all. So this was how he comforted Xiong'er. He caressed Xiong'er's head and said earnestly, "Young lad, don't be anxious. Who are you? How can I forget you when I become rich? It's just that now isn't the right time. When I become invincible in the universe and punch through the path of life and death, I will definitely bring you guys to show off and fly, okay?" Xiong'er's eyes lit up. Lin Jingwei and Bai Nyangzi also leaned over. The three of them asked in unison, "Really?" Chen Guang nodded. "Of course. As the saying goes, when a man achieves the Tao, his chickens and dogs will ascend to heaven. Little chick, little dog, and little bear, although you're a little heavy, you won't be able to run away if I bring you guys to heaven. Get lost." After a night of chatting, the other three finally couldn't open their eyes. Only then did Chen Guang sleep peacefully. When he woke up early in the morning, it was another beautiful day. This morning, the other three didn't have any classes. They weren't as diligent as Gaoya and Sun Xiaoxuan, choosing a second major. Chen Guang counted on his fingers. He had 2 foreign language classes. Looking at the three who were still snoring like thunder, Chen Guang could only curse them with envy and hate. I wish you guys a long sleep. It was already late autumn, and the morning air was thick with coldness. Although Chen Guang's body had been trained to be impervious to fire and water, as the saying goes, it's a good cold autumn. Getting up early is not as good as a dog. The laziness in his bones always seemed especially overbearing every cold morning. Although he had already woken up, he first opened his eyes, then closed them. When he opened his eyes again, 10 minutes had already been stolen. He turned his head to look at the newly bought Popcorn Pro 6 Plus beside his pillow. There were only 15 minutes left until the first class. He was like a tightly wound frog, jumping up and down. 3 minutes to wash up, 1 minute to go downstairs. From the time he got up to the time he trotted on the long bridge while eating a bun, it took him less than 8 minutes to get to the first building. Look! That's Chen Guang. A girl on the long bridge recognized him and exclaimed. The girl's exclamation caused more people to focus their attention on this handsome man who was as beautiful as the wind. The thought of asking Chen Guang for an autograph came to many people's minds. However, when they saw Chen Guang, who was trotting happily while eating a bun without any astrology, the idea of asking for an autograph instantly collapsed. Strange, I might have seen a fake celebrity. How is he a celebrity? He's no different from us when we're about to be late for class. As his fans, it's so embarrassing. Are we really going to ask him for an autograph? While these people were hesitating, Chen Guang had already run across the long bridge. They should feel lucky that they hadn't seen the most shocking scene. If they recognized that the mobile phone Chen Guang was using was the latest popcorn model that had been nicknamed 3P6P, they would be even more embarrassed. The popcorn mobile phone was about to go out of business, and the only spokesperson was Fudakang's Zhongquan egg. Its annual sales were less than that of other companies in a week, but Chen Guang actually knew how to use it. Do you have any self-awareness as a celebrity? Chapter 959. As he walked down the stairs, Chen Guang took out his mobile phone and logged into Azure Starry Sky to find out where his classroom was. At the same time, he checked the forum. He was happy that the boys from the School of Foreign Languages, who had received a critical blow a few days ago, had started to stir up trouble on the Azure Starry Sky forum again. But this time, they had learned their lesson. They didn't say anything about boycotting him to take up foreign languages, and no one dared to jump out and question the teachers who gave full marks in advance. Thinking back to the last time, he used his celebrity identity to try to get credits through under-the-table manipulation. As a result, he went to the World's Language Club and won the well-deserved championship of the World's Language Club competition. If he did it again, God knows if he would expand his scope to animals next time and put on a show called, Where Do the Amazing Animals Go? So this time, the boys focused their attention on his private life. After all, there were many aspects that Chen Guang didn't hide. He had publicly confessed to his counselor. Until now, he was still entangled with Jin Shiyue. He also had a particularly cute confidant in his class, the class monitor. It was impossible for him to have a clean relationship with the mature and beautiful vice president Tang of his company. Such a boy must be a humanoid fighter. Just as the girls signed a joint petition to ask Chen Guang to return to the School of Foreign Languages, the boys also signed a joint petition, calling on the girls to be on guard against him. Chen Guang was amused by the way these people guarded against thieves as if they were wolves. You guys like to shout all day long. I didn't think much about it. Seeing you guys being so afraid of this and that all day long, are you really not treating a bean bun like dried vegetables? For a moment, a mischievous idea came to him. He simply used his own account to reply to a post below, which was basically to inform the students that he was coming to class. The boys and girls of the School of Foreign Languages, who had already been waiting for class in advance, suddenly exploded. The boys began to curse, and the girls' pupils were shining. Last week, when he was criticized for skipping class, the boys of the School of Foreign Languages were still gloating. They didn't expect that after just 1 week, this guy actually came to class. If they had known this would happen, they wouldn't have encouraged others to join forces to pressure the school to find trouble with him for skipping class. Wasn't this lifting a stone only to drop it on their own feet? You're already the world's #1 language master, why do you still come to class? Can you just skip class until the end of the semester? Unfortunately, it was easier to invite a god and then to send him away. This god was already standing outside the classroom in the midst of the boys' endless melancholy. Ring 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 ring. As the bell rang, Chen Guang stepped into the classroom. The Celtic teacher, who was in her 30s and was in the prime of her life, suppressed the excitement in her heart. She turned around and looked at Chen Guang with a bright smile. "Mr. Chen, please come in." There was an uproar in the classroom. The teacher actually called him Teacher Chen. What the hell? However, they quickly reacted. Many of the people Chen Guang defeated at the World Language Conference were world-renowned experts and scholars. He even won the competition with an unstoppable momentum. Then, he himself was also a world-class scholar. It was just that in the past, because he was the same age as everyone else, and because he had too many different halos, they subconsciously ignored his academic achievements. Now that the teacher addressed him respectfully, the boys finally reacted. This was the champion of the World Language Conference, and currently the world's recognized greatest linguist. Chen Guang also did not react. He was stunned for a moment before he scratched his head and smiled awkwardly. "Thank you, teacher." After saying that, he walked inside. He originally planned to find a seat in the back row, but the female teacher designated a seat for him. It was the first row below the podium. "Teacher Chen, please sit here. I recently prepared a lot of questions to ask you." Chen Guang, who was taking out his textbooks from his bag, did not feel very good. "To be fair, I'm here to attend class today, not to teach." However, it was clear that others did not think so. The girls in the first row also surrounded him. Like the female teacher, each of them had a basket of questions. Chen Guang was overwhelmed. Fortunately, the teacher came to his rescue. She told everyone to restrain themselves and to ask any questions after class. Facing the teacher's behavior, which only allowed the officials to set fires and not allow the common people to light lamps, the girls dared not say anything. Looking at this fellow in the midst of the flowers with a blissful and troubled look, the boys who habitually shrunk to the back during class regretted it so much that their intestines turned green. If they had known this would happen, they would have occupied the first few rows. Now, this fellow had plunged headfirst into the kingdom of women. Throughout the entire class, the cunning and far-sighted teacher hid many of the questions she had prepared in the past in the normal lecture. From time to time, she would ask Chen Guang. The tireless teacher Guang also answered her questions easily and smoothly. Although this female teacher was not old, she was able to teach at Gokyo University. Her standards were not low. She was indeed very good at solving some of the knots that she did not understand. Fortunately, the person she met was Chen Guang. Fortunately, his acting skills were excellent. Otherwise, his face would have rippled with a smile after his mind was distracted for a while. Hey. What about us guys? Can we join the group too? Finally, a male straight-A student in the back row couldn't sit still. If there were others, then his status as a straight-A student would be affected. Chen Guang snorted coldly, "Guys?" Seeing his unhappy expression, many of the guys in the audience felt their hearts tighten. However, there were also some guys who were gradually angered. However, they were afraid of his reputation and didn't dare to criticize him in public. At the same time, there were also girls who secretly thought that Chen Guang was as lustful as the rumors said. Although everyone jokingly teased them as his wives on the school website, if he really was that kind of person, it would actually be quite disappointing. At this moment, Chen Guang, who was on the stage, changed the topic. "Guys, of course, can do it too." As soon as Chen Guang said this, many of the girls secretly heaved a sigh of relief. However, the guys' emotions were complicated. Some were ashamed to the point that their ears turned red. There were also some who were overjoyed and had already begun to frantically organize their notebooks. They were ashamed that they had gauged the heart of a gentleman with their own mean measures. It was obvious that Chen Guang had already mastered countless foreign languages. He had chosen these minor languages brazenly to get credits, not for their precious female resources. What they were happy about was that they could ask Chen Guang questions just like the girls. Although the students that were able to get into Wujing University were a little more relaxed after entering the school, they were actually the cream of the crop in their respective classes back in high school. They more or less had some pursuits and were here to learn true knowledge. I'm sorry, Mr. Chen. We misunderstood you in the past. The male straight-A student who had been the most active on the school forum previously stood up with a red face and apologized in public. However, Chen Guang changed the topic again. Don't be in a hurry to apologize. I have to say the ugly words first. If people respect me, I will respect them tenfold. Previously, you guys were so happy to criticize me on the internet. I have never settled the score with you guys because I was too lazy to care. But this doesn't mean that I like to return good for evil. I am not that magnanimous. I think you guys have seen a lot of reports about me on the internet. Yes, I am a narrow-minded man. Then Mr. Chen, what do you mean? The male straight-A student was confused. He had just said that they could ask him questions. What did he mean now? Chen Guang rolled his eyes. It's very simple. About this group, I have a few points. After I finish the other 7 courses, I guess there will be a lot of people joining the group. I guess you will also tell the group number in the School of Foreign Languages, so I don't know how many people will join the group at that time. You all know that I am very busy, so I can't answer questions for you all day. I don't have that time, and I can't shine the light on everyone. The whole class heard this and nodded. What he said was reasonable. So, about the boys, I have 3 conditions. First, if you want to ask me questions, you must be in the top 10 in your class. Otherwise, don't come to me. Second, you have to pay 500 yuan for each question. Well, you guys know that I don't need this money, but why do I have to charge it? The reason is very simple. I am stingy. You guys scolded me, and I still have to answer questions for you. I am not Sakyamuni, right? Third, every boy can't ask more than 1 question a month. Okay, about the boys, these are the 3 conditions. When Chen Guang finished his words, all the guys started wailing. His rules were so harsh that it made people's hair stand on end. But the reason was on his side. Everyone knew that he was a tycoon with a net worth of hundreds of millions, so 500 yuan was really nothing to him. But then again, thinking about the consulting fees of other experts and scholars, with his status in the field of linguistics, let alone 500 yuan, he was afraid that if he took it to the outside world, he would probably have to queue up for 50,000 yuan. Thinking about it this way, although Mr. Chen said that he was stingy, his generosity made the boys feel ashamed of their inferiority. What a great person, what a generous person, who had gotten rid of vulgar tastes, and had great sentiments and integrity. Presumably, it was because he had such a noble personality that he could have such shocking talent, right? What about the girls? What about the girls? The prettily beautiful girl asked anxiously. The boy's conditions were too harsh, making her feel uneasy. Chen Guang laughed. Girls, no conditions. As long as I'm not busy, I can answer any questions I see online. If the questions are too complicated, one-on-one video tutorials are not out of the question. The guys instantly collapsed. F***ck, this difference in treatment was too much. Mr. Chen, is it too late for me to cut it off now? The top student from before wailed helplessly. Chen Guang looked at the man. Transvestites are not allowed to ask questions, especially those with thick eyebrows and big eyes like you. Oh. No. 2 lines of regretful tears flowed down the top student's cheeks. Before leaving, Chen Guang appointed the first group manager of Find Chen Guang for foreign language learners. It was none other than the beautiful girl called Blue Lavender. He also secretly hinted to her that he was usually busy during the day and would have more free time at night, especially after midnight. In addition, he had a unique skill to summon the dragon god. He also taught her a one-on-one video in the bathtub to increase the success rate of summoning by 200%. Of course, he was just joking. He didn't manage to control his mouth, so he accidentally blurted it out. Thinking about it, she would not really have the guts to summon him in the bathtub, right? Thinking back to the way Blue Lavender blushed when he left, Chen Guang gave himself a hard slap. He must sew up this stinky mouth next time. Chen Guang did not expect that after 3 days, his Find Chen Guang for Foreign Language Learners group would be full. As for those who came late and did not join, Chen Guang could only express his helplessness. After all, the super group could only have 2,000 people. Looking at the 77% of the group members who were female, he almost used all his strength to control the drool at the corner of his mouth. After all, the conditions he set for the boys were a little too harsh. There were only a few boys who could enter the top 10 in the class. There was no point for those who were clearly far from him to come in. Except for Blue Lavender, who knew a little of the inside story. In the eyes of the other students, this group was also a very holy academic temple. Since they could not ask questions, they could only be kicked out even if they forced their way in. So, they did not want to embarrass themselves. Therefore, the final result was that the ratio of men and women in the group was completely out of balance. Chen Guang put his finger on the heads of a few boys. He hesitated for a long time and finally gave up the idea of kicking these guys out and building a harem of 2,000 beauties. You may not believe it, but I am actually a good person. Chapter 960. For the next few days, Chen Guang was deeply immersed in being a student and a professor at the same time, unable to extricate himself. As he expected, as long as it was an elective course in a small language, he would be entangled by the teachers and students in that classroom. The teachers could use the time in class to pretend to let him answer the questions, but in fact, they were all using their positions for personal gain. The students could only find ways to add his Find Chen Guang for Learning Foreign Languages harem group. During this period, there was an interlude. The dean of the School of Foreign Languages dragged the newly appointed vice president to find him, and shamelessly tried to let him directly teach in the School of Foreign Languages. Chen Guang refused at that time. Are you kidding me? Do I look like a teacher? I'd rather play games than run to the podium to give a lecture, okay? Do I look like I'm very free? But he finally gave in. From now until the final exam, he didn't need to go to the classroom for the 8 elective courses in small languages, nor did he need to take attendance. He didn't even need to take the exam. He just needed to give a full score without any explanation. He only needed to give a lecture at the end of the semester, and he could talk about any content in the public course. In addition, the School of Foreign Languages also prepared a place for him as an honorary professor. At that time, Chen Guang couldn't stay calm, and the vice president also couldn't sit still. After all, the school had publicly criticized Chen Guang for skipping classes last week and recorded a demerit on his record. This was what the Foreign Language School's dean said: the World's Language Conference is a global academic event, and anyone that can rank amongst the top in the World's Language Conference is an outstanding figure in the world of linguistics. All of them can be considered as Grand Master-level scholars. Not to mention that Chen Guang has undeniable academic achievements, and he's the champion of the World's Language Conference. With his knowledge, our School of Foreign Languages of Gokyo University can invite him as an honorary professor, and that's because of his light. Headmaster, you might not know this, but I heard that Yale and Cambridge, these world-renowned universities, have just finished discussing and are preparing to publicly send an invitation to Chen Guang. Chen Guang, who was listening at the side, was immediately overjoyed. He took out his mobile phone and planned to make a call to inquire about this matter. There was no other reason. The title of an honorary professor of an Ivy League school. With this title, he could take it home and ask his father to make a plaque. He could guarantee that his father would be so happy that his mouth would split from the back of his head. He could boast from East Street to West Street in Lalai County. As for whether this shell company, Tianguang Media, was worth 20 billion yuan? Of course, it was not worth it. However, this was an era of blindfolded people. It did not matter if it was worth it or not. If they said it was worth it, and they took out the money, the company was put on the table. The company gradually had goods in its pockets, and it was profitable. In that case, it was really worth that much money. Of course, there was another situation. After the company received the 1 billion yuan in cash, not only did it not make a profit from the project, but it also made a loss. After making a loss for a while, the capital chain broke, and the company went bankrupt. However, there was nothing strange about this. In business and investment, one could not always make a profit. Even the stock god, Warren Buffett, lost billions of US dollars in IBM in 2 years. The moon waxed and waned, and people experienced sorrow and joy. In the business world, when it came to capital operations, it was very normal and reasonable to make a profit. In the past, Chen Guang did not like this kind of thing. Well, in fact, he did not like this kind of thing either. In this kind of capital operation, the people who made money were always the rich, and the people who suffered losses were always the ordinary people. For example, in his case, at least on the surface, the people who really suffered losses were the small shareholders and the small citizens who were insignificant in the stock market and the fund market. As for the other influential shareholders, Rao Zhenghai would find ways to compensate them from other places if he made them suffer losses. However, no one would care about the small individual investors who had tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of yuan in their hands. They were just leaks. When the weather was good, Rao Zhenghai was happy and brought them to make a fortune. When there was a slight disturbance, like this time, when there was a strong wind from the sky, Rao Zhenghai would decisively cut some of his leaks to shelter them from the wind and rain. In fact, this kind of thing could be understood by anyone with a discerning eye. Anyone who had been in the financial circle for a few years and was well informed could understand. However, their words did not carry much weight. Even if they said it, nobody would care or believe them. No matter how loud they shouted, their opinions could only appear in the corners that few people could see. As for the influential media in the industry, not only would they not expose this matter, but they would also be incited by many people to applaud this investment and financing. They would stand up and endorse this deal, tricking more people to reduce the losses of the huge Rising Sea Fund. The gap created by the small funds that ran away would be filled by countless small people who smelled the fragrance and thought that it was a chance to make a fortune. Buy low, don't buy high. Many people put in firewood. This was the unchanging truth that many people who did not know the industry believed in. If Tianguang Media really went bankrupt in the future, the media would pretend to be mute again. The countless individual investors who drowned could only grit their teeth and swallow the blood, blaming themselves for not being smart enough. This was finance. When the volume had reached a certain level, unless it completely collapsed, there would always be countless leaks to share the losses. The incomparably huge financial machine trembled violently in pain for a while. It shook off the rust on its body, but it could still continue moving forward with the blood and flesh of the leaks. Of course, even if Chen Guang did not really like the way Rao Zhenghai and the old masters handled this matter, he had no intention of stopping them now. It was not that he had lost his conscience and became the same as Rao Zhenghai and the old masters. He loved money. After all, it was 1 billion. Who could refuse it? However, what made him truly feel at ease taking this money was because he was sure of one thing. As long as he was still alive, Tianguang Media would not collapse. He was confident in his profitability. He had his own bottom line and principles. Although the current Tianguang Media was only an empty shell of copyright management, if it really could not make profits in the future, it would not be able to continue. At most, he would sacrifice some of his own interests and take a part of Tianguang Agency's business to Tianguang Media. Anyway, he needed to collect faith points. No matter how hard and tiring he was, he could make more similar programs to the previous one. That way, he would be able to support the $1 billion. He knew himself well. Perhaps the $20 billion brand valuation of other celebrities or sports stars was mostly fake. However, Chen Guang knew that as the owner of the heavenly Holy Grail, as the current god of stunts, the $20 billion valuation was an underestimation of his own brand value. What a joke. The old man had 3,000 skill worlds. How could that be possible? Moreover, what if I really couldn't do it with my current methods and got pissed off? What if I tried to drive an F1 car? The invincible and enhanced version of Schumacher from the East, would I be afraid? Before he was injured, Schumacher had an annual income of hundreds of millions of US dollars. His brand value was billions of US dollars. Why couldn't I have it? Or else, what if I took the dart stunt and went to play golf? Tiger Woods would cry too, wouldn't he? Moreover, I had just finished acting in a play, and there was already such a buzz on the internet. What if I were to finish filming women and shoot a few blockbuster movies and win an Oscar? Or else, I could go and play boxing. I could make Klitschko and Klitschko sleepless at night, make Tyson afraid to watch the game, and make Mayweather and Pacquiao change the name of the game of the century to the game of the year. Do you believe me? Also, the old man now has the strongest body in the history of mankind. What if I learn basketball or football? When that time comes, I can lead the League Two team to be promoted 3 times in 3 years and win the English Premier League title. I can lead the Chinese team to win the World Cup. What if the old man becomes the strongest player in history? Who dares to say that my personal IP is not worth $20 billion? If I really reach a point of no return, I still have a trick up my sleeves. It is said that the sex industry is the strongest technological driving force for human evolution. What this old man has is an invincible pile driver that can kill gods, Buddhas, ghosts see worries, and flowers bloom when they see flowers. If worst comes to worst, this old man will film an invincible threesome in history where I play world-class piano music while having sex with thousands of women. The 4K Blu-ray disc is only $99. You won't lose out at $99. You won't be fooled. 2K Internet HD video is only $39. $39. I'll bring you to show off and fly. VR Full HD video is only $199. If I don't earn $10 billion from this film, how can I be worthy of the old man? I might not be able to sell it in China, but I can sell it abroad legally. Ahem, take it, take it. This sacrifice is a little too big. I can't accept it. In short, Rao Xinghai's $1 billion will not be a loss. At that time, those small retail investors who were dragged into the financial crisis would not only not suffer, but they would also be able to make money. As for those major shareholders who got Rao Xinghai's compensation and cashed out, those small and medium-sized funds who looked like they knew the business but ran away by shorting the market, they will be the ones who will lose out. In the past, Chen Guang did not understand these principles. Everything about finance was taught to him by Lu Fei. Chen Guang felt that what he was doing now was not only not scamming the small investors, but robbing the rich to help the poor. I can make them rich together. Even if Shanghai only owns 5% of the shares. Just like that, he stood on the temporary stage under the Lida building with the radiance of a great man. He looked at the hundreds of media reporters and thousands of onlookers. He smiled brightly. He smiled brightly until he received the IP list of Tianguang Media's stockpiled by Lu Xiaoyang. This long list was the result of Lu Xiaoyang and Fang Tianyu's hot-bloodedness in the past 2 weeks, running all over the country. These were the fixed assets of Tianguang Media, and Rao Xinghai used them to explain to others when he invested. Although it took less than 2 weeks from the start of work to the signing of these copyrights, and the money spent might not even add up to 20 million, they could brag that it was N billion. Just like before Empresses in the Palace became popular, its movie and TV series copyrights were only worth 7 figures. But now? Just based on these 3 words, it should be worth at least a few $100 million, right? However, Chen Guang's expression was dark. This was because he saw a familiar title in the IP list. To be honest, I didn't expect you to buy Empresses in the Palace, Hua Qinggu, and Langya list. But what the hell is this? What a scam. Fall. After pulling Lu Xiaoyang and Fang Tianyu to the stage, Chen Guang pointed at the tragic line of words on the IP list and questioned them with gritted teeth. The billionaire young master's cruel doting wife, please love me 1,001 times. Yes. That's right. It was by Nyangzi's deceptive book. It should be noted that recently, the white snake had been shameless in order to write this deceitful book for him. He actually danced striptease in the dormitory. In the end, Lin Jingwei and Xiong couldn't stand it anymore. They dragged him out and beat him up. Only then did they manage to suppress the evil wind. However, Chen Guang never expected to see such an unlucky super long title in this list. The original author of this book was sleeping at the foot of his bed. He licked his toes and begged to buy it, but to no avail. It was too lousy to look at. However, after going around in circles, the copyrights ended up in his hands. What kind of F***ck was this? What kind of vengeful spirit was haunting him? Chapter 961. Fang Tianyu and Lu Xiaoyang looked at each other. They did not know what was wrong with CEO Chen. Actually, the list in his hand was filled with such hardcore books. But why did he have such a strong opinion of this particular book? Seeing that the two of them couldn't answer, Chen Guang jabbed the list with his finger and said with tears in his eyes, "We're trying to bluff old Rao, but we can't just accept books from any random person. I must have seen a ghost in my life. The first chapter of this book made me vomit for 3 days and 3 nights. I even made a bet with the original author of this lousy book. I said that I would gouge out my own eyes if anyone bought the copyright of this lousy book. My Krypton gold dog eyes must be blind. Why did I see such a lousy title in this list? Oh my God, I can't take it anymore. My eyes hurt. My heart hurts." Then Chen Guang immediately retracted his supernatural power and looked straight at the two of them. Then the question is, who bought the copyright? Lu Xiaoyang and Fang Tianyu turned to look at each other. They knew that CEO Chen was going to pursue the matter. Although they did not know why he knew the author of this lousy book and had even read the first chapter, he was poisoned. But it was obvious that he was very unhappy about this matter. The person who bought the copyright of this book was going to be in trouble. At this moment, Lu Xiaoyang and Fang Tianyu looked at each other. Their gazes were focused on each other, shining with the light of mutual appreciation. They were comrades who had gone through thick and thin together. After their eyes met for a short while, they immediately understood each other. They looked at each other silently and nodded heavily. This short exchange made the two of them reach a consensus. They had to bear it together. "It's him." The two of them pointed at each other. The two of them thought to themselves at the same time. "Damn, as expected of the person I admire. He is as sinister as I am. Despicable. Shameless. Despicable. All right, boss. We signed this agreement together." Seeing that they could not deny each other, Chen Guang's face became darker and darker, almost to the point that water could be squeezed out. The two of them quickly confessed in unison. Lu Xiaoyang spoke quickly at this critical moment. "Yesterday, old Fang and I went to Denghai and bought a batch of copyrights from the largest online literature group in our country. Aren't female novels adapted into TV dramas very popular in recent years? We thought that it would be good to cast a wide net. What if we managed to catch a big fish? They don't sell it at a high price, and we need it urgently. If it weren't for your reputation, they wouldn't have sold it." Fang Tianyu nodded repeatedly. That's right. It's just that we didn't expect that one of the authors had a grudge against you. We miscalculated." What the two of them said made sense, but Chen Guang pointed at the 2 words at the end of Bai Nyangzi's long list of titles. What the hell is with the word, strongly recommended? I understand what you mean by strongly recommending. I've heard of a few other novels. Although I don't read female novels, they're all works of praise. But why is there the word, strongly recommended, at the end of this lousy book? Fang Tianyu explained, the corresponding company said that this book is very popular on the internet, and many readers have collected it. We had also looked for a professional evaluation agency to evaluate it, and there's no mistake. Chen Guang slapped his forehead. Isn't this nonsense? He had helped Bai Nyangzi promote his book on Weibo many times. How can he not have a lot of readers? How can he not be popular? He never expected that he was caught in a trap of his own making. This was an ill-fated relationship. The other books are fine, but can we return this book? This was his last struggle. Fang Tianyu looked troubled. Because we need it urgently. We had already transferred the payment when we signed the contract yesterday. Now, the other party has also announced it. If we go back on our word, I'm afraid it won't be good. This time, it was Lu Xiaoyang's turn to nod. That's right. That's right. After all, the other party had helped us a lot. Their asking price is not high, and they have given us enough face. We are the only ones who have been able to purchase copyrights from them in bulk for the past 2 years. Chen Guang patted his chest. He was in so much pain that he could not breathe. I can't take it anymore. My 21-year-old heart disease is acting up. After a while, Chen Guang finally recovered. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was getting closer, and he had to go on stage. Chen Guang was about to go on stage when he received a call from Bai Nyangzi. In front of Lu Xiaoyang and Fang Tianyu, Chen Guang answered the call and put it on speakerphone. Brother Guang. That was great news. My editor just called me and said that the film adaptation rights for my lousy book had been sold. You also know that it is a lousy book? Bai Nyangzi laughed over the phone. After all, this is my first book. I still have some self-awareness. But it doesn't matter. Anyway, that unlucky B** starred is paying for it. This is my first step on the road to becoming a famous screenwriter. First time unfamiliar, second time familiar, I can write the next book. He, Brother Guang, when I become famous, I will not forget the person who dug the well for me. I will sign the copyright with you first, and then sign the electronic contract with the website. No, I have to tell the whole class about this good news. Can you come back tonight? It's my treat. Qin Yixian. You must come. You are the person I need to thank the most. Chen Guang's heart started to hurt again. Get lost. You will not see me anymore. I am going to hang myself now. Why? Chen Guang, because I am the unlucky B** starred you are talking about. Chen Guang hung up the phone and looked at the two of them. Boss, you scared me to death. So the author is one of us. It's okay, pfft. Lu Xiaoyang could not hold back and laughed. Fang Tianyu quietly turned his face away. I did not laugh. I really did not laugh. His shoulders shrugged crazily, perfectly betraying his inner feelings. Chen Guang could totally imagine what kind of tragic ridicule awaited him in class after this matter was spread out. The fame of the great author Bai had long been spread to the whole class. Almost everyone in the class had been ravaged by his forceful promotion. Most of the boys died tragically in the first chapter. Occasionally, a few people made it to the third chapter and finally fell under his lines. The rich second-generation male supporting character was slapped by the female lead, and then the male supporting character started to think. In my entire life, no one has ever dared to speak to me like this. I had never thought that a person's slap could actually make my heart palpitate like this. She is so special. Here, all the boys in the class were annihilated. The girls were slightly better. Some of them made it to the 10th chapter, and then formed a group to beat up Bai Nyangzi. This was a godly work that could poison the whole class to death. But I actually bought his copyright. Chen Guang suddenly felt that the future of this broken company, Tianguang Media, was bleak. His ambition was instantly destroyed. He did not even remember how he shamelessly finished the whole ribbon-cutting event. The impact was so great that he, who was always good at giving speeches without a script, had to take the script written by the public relations expert Lu Xiaoyang to speak on stage. He didn't even remember what he said. In short, he shamelessly flaunted the top IP that Tianguang Media currently owned, boosting the confidence of the capital market in this newly established subsidiary company, and providing some substantial material for the media that had long been prepared to follow the trend and prepare their articles. At the last moment of the ribbon cutting, President Rao also rushed over and stood beside Chen Guang. They picked up the scissors and clicked on the red silk. It was considered as personally standing up for Tianguang Media and paving the way for the Rising Sea Fund's capital injection. Since then, the first branch of Tianguang Agency, which had been renamed Tianguang Group, officially announced the establishment of Tianguang Media. Tianguang Media's office was also located on the 15th floor of the Lida building. Its main business was copyright operation and the packaging and output of cultural and media projects. It was similar to the brilliant Starry Sky culture that currently operated variety shows such as I Am a Singer, and similar to similar cultural companies that operated films and TV series such as The Legend of the Sword and Fairy, 9 States, and Grave Robber. Its profit model was not complicated. In general, these companies would take the lead in investing in films and TV series, or in variety shows. They would share the profits from the box office, advertising income, copyright licensing fees from TV stations and video websites, and so on. Of course, everyone knew that the so-called IPs that Tianguang Media had come up with were not as good as they looked. They were all very ordinary. The company's signature dish was actually the reputation of the boss, Chen Guang. Although the media's public opinion was applauding, it had only been 2 weeks, and only 20 million had been burned. It was really not enough to come up with a big brand. There were always people on the internet who understood the situation and started to peel the skin off Chen Guang's company on the spot. Although Chen Guang said a lot of beautiful words on stage and sounded decent, he did not reveal whether or not he would personally participate in Tianguang Media's business. According to previous experience, his personal brand resources should still be concentrated in the Tianguang Group. After all, he was only one person, and it was impossible for him to divide it into 2 people. Then, if Tianguang Media only operated the IPs like other companies, and did not get the blessing of Chen Guang himself, with the resources that they had come up with so far, it was really not good. This was very likely Chen Guang, who had gradually become arrogant, wanted to play. Although the domestic cultural industry was developing well, it had already become a Red Sea. Countless investors were flocking into the market. Everyone was in a killing frenzy, and the competition could be said to be fierce. Perhaps today was the ribbon-cutting ceremony for Tianguang Media, and in 2 months, this company would be acquired by the headquarters of the Tianguang Group. Then, it would be priced at a certain amount of money, further diluting Tang Jia Fund's shares in the Tianguang Group. That's right, this was definitely his plan. He was just using his left hand to cheat people of money. Of course, this was the speculation of the people outside, but many of them felt that their guesses were not far from the truth. However, within the Tianguang Group, especially the 4 middle-level King Kongs, when they saw Rao Zhenghai personally coming to the stage, they were completely certain. This time, the boss really wanted to play it big. As the mainstay of the internal operations of the Tianguang Group, Yu Hong did not have any intention of moving. Su Li was a reliable person of few words, and he was deeply trusted by Chen Guang. Although Tianguang Media claimed to be financially independent, that was only for outsiders to hear. When it came to financial matters, one should not bother with 2 people. Su Li also knew that he did not need to move, and the financial burden of Tianguang Media would definitely fall on him. At most, he only needed to expand the size of the finance department. Rao Zhenghai might also want to plant someone into Tianguang Media, but with the boss's strong personality, he would not let the financial power fall into the hands of others. However, there were two other people who were not so content. It was the manager of the business department, Fang Tianyu, and the manager of the public relations and publicity department, Lu Xiaoyang. Although the Tianguang Group was extremely profitable, there was only so much liquid capital in the company. Fang Tianyu, as the manager of the business department, did not have a sense of humor. Since he was working for the boss, it was definitely more comfortable to go to a branch company with 1 billion yuan in cash. Tianguang Group might seem like the head office, but in fact, it revolved around the boss and served him alone. It definitely could not compare to being the head of a media company. As for Lu Xiaoyang's motive, it was even easier to understand. He dreamed of getting rid of his position as the manager of the public relations and publicity department. When he thought of the nickname given to him by his classmates, Almighty Superman's #1 male butler, he wanted to die. Therefore, less than half an hour after the ribbon-cutting event ended, the two of them rushed into Chen Guang's office one after the other, scaring Chen Guang, who was reading the fans' private messages on Weibo. Chen Guang quickly moved his mouse to the bottom right corner, and the computer returned to the desktop. He crossed his legs and said mysteriously, "What's up?" Lu Xiaoyang, boss, there seems to be something missing from today's ribbon cutting. Fang Tianyu, that's right. It's very important. Chen Guang crossed his legs higher and higher. Spit it out if you have something to say. Fang Tianyu said, the personnel appointment at Tianguang Media. My boss. Lu Xiaoyang took a step forward. That's right. My most handsome and charming dear boss, you might need a CEO of Tianguang Media named Lu Xiaoyang. Fang Tianyu had been robbed at the crucial moment, and he was furious. Boss. You need a CEO with an MBA from the University of Pennsylvania. Damn it. So what if you ate bread overseas? Lu Xiaoyang turned and glared at Fang Tianyu. Fang Tianyu straightened his neck. Of course I am. If I didn't have some skills, how could I have been pulled into the management team by the Tang Jia Foundation right after I graduated? When President Tang invested in you and sent me, old you, and old Sue over, it cost him a lot. Boss. I promise I will make the media company flourish. I have rich experience in capital operation. It's time to show my true skills. Show yourself. My shiny MBA certificate. This guy had planned this for a long time. He had brought this weapon with him before he left home. He looked at Lu Xiaoyang proudly and sneered. TSK TSK. I might be joking around with you all the time, but that's just a ploy by me to numb my enemies. I bet you didn't expect me to be a top student from the University of Pennsylvania. What's the most important thing in the 21st century? Talent. Lu Xiaoyang was dazzled by Fang Tianyu's shiny certificate and took a step back. Now that things have come to this, I have no choice but to show you my trump card. What trump card? Fang Tianyu was shocked. Lu Xiaoyang took out his phone and showed him a photo. Boss, this is my 18-year-old distant cousin. She's your diehard fan. She's super pretty and innocent. She's in her 3rd year of high school and will be entering Gokyo University next year. I swear on my honor that she looks like Audrey Hepburn. Fang Tianyu's face was ashen. D***MN. Shameless. I'm going to lose. He even sold out his cousin. Chen Guang glanced at Lu Xiaoyang's phone. He crossed his legs and almost fell over. D***MN. If I remember correctly, the girl I saw in my Weibo private message 2 minutes ago was this little girl. Even now, her picture was still in close-up. Innocent my A**S. He sat up straight and coughed twice to calm himself down. Then he looked at the two of them. Actually, I did consider you two in my original plan. But because of the unlucky billionaire today, I'm very dissatisfied with the two of you. I think you two are very unreliable. Although Tianguang Media was a gift from Boss Rao of Shanghai, they still had to work hard to build up their company. If we buy such copyrights in the future, What will happen to the company? The two of them drooped their heads and lost most of their fighting spirit. Although they couldn't say that Dinghai's online literature group was cheating them, they had good intentions and made a rare concession to sell copyrights in bulk for the first time this year. In order to push forward this matter, the two of them had put in a lot of effort. Other than the unlucky, billionaire young master, the other copyrights were not popular, but they were still reliable. But billionaire young master was the only one that was unorthodox. During the ribbon-cutting ceremony, the two of them had asked around. It was indeed as Chen Guang had said. This book didn't live up to its name. Although it had a high click rate and was quite popular, the writing was really terrible. It wasn't suitable to be adapted into a TV series. However, the online novel company was also kind enough to sell the popular novels together as a package. What the hell was wrong with readers nowadays? It was obviously a terrible book, but it was so popular. Moreover, President Shen had read it himself. He was so angry. Besides being unlucky this year, what else could he say? At this moment, Chen Guang's office door was slammed open. Chen Guang, I'll be your CEO. Before the person entered, the voice came first. It was a clear and familiar female voice. Chapter 962. Chen Guang, who was half lying on the chair, sat up straight and looked up at the door, only to see a person who had no reason to be here. It's her. The genius girl, Chu Zijin, whom he had met at the World Language Conference. She's also a contemporary internet celebrity, a weaker version of herself, Miss Chu from Bamboo Live. What is she doing here? And why does she want to be my CEO? Do you think my CEO is a cabbage that I can entrust to any random person who doesn't have much interaction with? Don't think that my Tianguang Media looks like a shell company now. In 2 days, you will slap me, oh no, slap your faces with 1 billion yuan, okay? But before Chen Guang showed his power, Lu Xiaoyang and Fang Tianyu, who felt a great threat, jumped up. Miss Chu. We are talking business here. Don't make trouble, get out. Lu Xiaoyang was indeed a veteran of Bamboo Live. He recognized her at a glance. The business elite, Fang Tianyu, also had an outstanding ability to recognize people. His reaction was slightly slower than Comrade Xiao Lu by 2 seconds, then he called out her name, Miss Chu Zijin. This is the office of the chairman of Tianguang Media Group. It's not very nice of you to enter without an invitation. Now that there's an outsider here, Chen Guang couldn't be as indecent as before. He straightened his body and looked at the other party with interest. He wanted to know how she would react. It had been a few days since they last met, but she didn't look any different from the last time they met. It was so much so that even her clothes were simple and elegant. If it wasn't for the lace on her sleeves, Chen Guang would have thought that she hadn't changed her clothes. Obviously, Chu Zijin wasn't a girl who liked to waste time and energy on dressing up. Fortunately, she had a good face, a natural beauty, and no makeup was needed to attract people. But at this time, her expression was she was very cold and quite impolite. The way she looked at Lu Xiaoyang and Fang Tianyu was like looking at 2 big pieces of meat on the chopping board. While Chen Guang was thinking about this, Chu Zijin turned her head and looked at him. The next moment, her entire temperament changed. The first time he saw her, she cupped her heart with her hands. In less than a second, her originally cold face was flushed. Brother Chen Guang, I really didn't expect you to be so good at acting. Congratulations on the success of your previous play. She completely ignored the 2 Vajras. Chen Guang was stunned by her abrupt change. The speed at which you change your expression can no longer be described as flipping a book. You're an esports monitor with a super high refresh rate. Chen Guang's face reddened. You're too kind. It's just a small trick. It's not worth mentioning. He finally reacted. In a sense, Chu Zijin was not an outsider. She was his second fanatic believer after Shuelin. Just by looking at the green thread of faith value on her forehead, if she was really competent, it seemed that she could be trusted. Brother Chen Guang, you're too polite. Alright, let's get back to business. Smooches. Chen Guang and the two beside him had goosebumps all over. But the next moment, Chu Zijin turned around and looked at Lu Xiaoyang and Fang Tianyu. The cold wind blew, biting cold. The atmosphere in the office suddenly dropped by 8 degrees. Lu Xiaoyang and Fang Tianyu felt that they could not roll their eyes enough. They had never seen someone change their expression so quickly. Are you a Sichuan opera singer? This difference in treatment is too much. The corners of Chu Zijin's mouth curled into a cold smile. Facing the siege of these two successful people, she did not panic in the face of danger. She only snorted and said, if it weren't for you two slanderous officials vainly trying to bring chaos to the imperial court, I wouldn't have barged into the throne room. Chen Guang secretly gave her a thumbs up. The use of the throne room was really clever. But personally, I feel that slanderous officials should be changed to eunuchs or eunuchs. You! What nonsense are you spouting? I even brought chaos to the imperial court. Your Majesty, I am wronged. But Face got into character quickly. Seeing that Chen Guang did not drive Chu Zijin away, he must have some ideas. After all, she was such a beautiful girl. Fang Tianyu rolled his eyes and understood tacitly. That's right. The imperial concubines are not allowed to interfere in the imperial court. Chu Guiren, step down quickly. Chu Zijin still kept a straight face. Who is role-playing with you? I am talking about serious matters. Fang Tianyu and Lu Xiaoyang wanted to strangle her. Didn't you start it first? As for the IPs that you guys bought, I'll count a few of them first. Billionaire Young Master, forget it, I won't read the title anymore. What the hell is this? This book is so bad that it can shock the heavens and make the gods cry. There are also, My 3,000 Beautiful Wolves, the daughter of a concubine wants to attack the crown prince, the 8 dwarfs and the Black Pearl Princess, and the proud prince kisses my baby. What kind of lousy books are these? These few books were all scams. Chen Guang trusted you and gave you full authority to operate the books. Is this how you spend money? Unexpectedly, Chu Zijin had come prepared. She actually used her fingers to pick out a few coquettish B***cheese from the list that Chen Guang had seen before, especially by Nyangzi's masterpiece. Lu Xiaoyang was shocked. How did you know our company's secret? This list is internal information. Fang Tianyu coughed twice. When the boss cut the ribbon, it was already posted on the company's official website. Denghai Company also announced it. Lu Xiaoyang coughed violently. Ahem, I admit that there may have been some mistakes. But we bought the copyright of dozens of novels at once. It is impossible to check every one of them carefully. It is normal to have some mistakes. The main thing is that we are pressed for time. We didn't have enough time to check them carefully. This whole set only costs about 10 million yuan. As long as there is a high-quality novel in the middle, it will be enough. Chu Zijin slammed the table heavily. Nonsense. In my opinion, every penny has to be spent wisely. I have never read female novels before, but how did I manage to find out all the rat **t in the list in just half a day? Also, I did not read the news from your official website. I can come and go as I please with your lousy network defense. Chen Guang raised his hand weakly. I am not dead yet. Oh, I am going to punish you two traitors today. Chen Guang raised his hand again. I say, Missy Chu, what were you doing before you came in? Why are you acting again? Chu Zijin became shy in a second. In order to learn how to operate the IP, I crammed on the original novels of Empresses in the Palace, Legend of Miyu, and Every Step is Frightening, in the morning. I couldn't stop it. Chen Guang understood instantly. He had roughly grasped the learning method of this wild genius. Crazy demon immersion learning method. Lu Xiaoyang and Fang Tianyu were really shocked this time. Chu Zijin was not a small character, but a well-known genius. Her performance in the World Language Contest was almost second only to Chen Guang. In other words, she really used half a day to find those poisoned books. That was a little too much. How is it? You have nothing to say now, right? The root of the matter is that the two of you are not capable enough. The two continued to roll their eyes. Do you think anyone can be like you two superhumans? Brother Chen Guang, did you see that? Also, if you hire me, it is equivalent to hiring a super network security expert. You also know that I hack other people's websites a lot. I am actually very knowledgeable about network security. Chen Guang thought about it and said, but Tianguang Media is after all not a joke. This company, I know. In a few days, the Rising Sea Insurance Foundation will have an injection of 1 billion. At this moment, even Chen Guang was dumbfounded. You know about that too? He had only spoken to Rao Zhenghai verbally about this matter. Other than that, he had only spoken to Old Master Jean about this matter on the phone once. There was no electronic information in the company. Before today, even the 4 great King Kongs were half in the dark. Chu Zijin smiled again. Well, it's like this. I have never understood your motive for opening a branch company. Recently, I have been very curious. When you cut the ribbon today, I looked down from the crowd. I saw the chairman of the Rising Sea, Rao Zhenghai, who originally had nothing to do with you, also cut the ribbon. I became suspicious. Then? How did you know it was 1 billion? Chen Guang thought this was too scary. Could it be that she could see through his inner world? Then, I spent 10 minutes analyzing the recent capital movements of the Shanghai Financial Group, especially Rao Zhenghai's several moves in the capital market. I built a mathematical model to analyze them and deduced that he had moved 1 billion yuan of cash flow, which is now right there. Other than injecting capital into your Tianguang Media, I can't think of a second use. Chen Guang's mouth was wide open. This time, he gave Chu Zijin a thumbs up. My Miss Chu, you're awesome. But I don't know how much he valued Tianguang Media and how many shares he will hold. Big brother Chen Guang, can you tell me? Chu Zipping blinked his eyes and looked at Chen Guang adorably. Chen Guang leaned forward slightly. 20 billion, and Rising Sea will hold 5% of the shares. Chu Zijin's mouth formed an O shape. She had thought that the premium would be too high, but she didn't expect it to be this high. Chen Guang smiled confidently. He had finally made a comeback. So, big brother Chen Guang, are you interested in making me your CEO now? Do you want free labor who is proficient in network security, modern economics, and more than 30 foreign languages? Chen Guang turned to look at Fang Tianyu and Lu Xiaoyang. Do you two have any objections? Both of them shook their heads like a rattle drum. Lu Xiaoyang admitted defeat. He had given away his distant cousin, but it was not as ruthless as Lu Xiaoyang selling himself. Fang Tianyu silently stuffed his University of Pennsylvania MBA certificate behind his butt. He thought it was golden before, but now it was yellow shit. Chen Guang turned to look at Chu Zijin again. Then I have another question. You said free labor just now. No salary. Why is that? Because I admire you. Yes, I give you full marks for this reason. Chen Guang clapped his hands. This matter was settled. Chapter 963. Of course, it was impossible for him not to pay Chu Zijin. A fanatic was a fanatic, and a CEO was a CEO. No matter how rich she was, if she wanted people to work for her, she had to feed them. That was the basic principle. Chen Guang initially gave Chu Zijin an annual salary of 500,000. It wasn't an exaggeration, but it wasn't high either. If she could really demonstrate her ability in the upcoming work and efficiently use the 1 billion cash that Tianguang Media was about to receive, she could let this shell company, which many people thought was just going through the motions, take a solid step forward. Then, her income would naturally grow with the wind. Chen Guang never mistreated his own people. Lu Xiaoyang and Fang Tianyu didn't succeed in jumping to the media company. Even if they wanted to be vice presidents, Chen Guang didn't give them what they wanted. To Chen Guang, Tianguang Media was just a minor detail. His core business was still in the head office. Everything had to revolve around his statue and faith value. Money was an external object, but faith value was the only thing that could last forever. Over the past few months, the four great Vajras of Tianguang's brokerage company have been working well together. Whenever Chen Guang tried something unconventional, they would always be flustered, but they would always be able to handle it well. So even though Chen Guang said Lu Xiaoyang and Fang Tianyu, that was only a joke after they had a good relationship. In fact, Chen Guang was very satisfied with the entire Tianguang group. If it was someone else, their relationship would become distant and it would be uncomfortable. On the other hand, Chen Guang was worried that others might not be able to do as well as the four great Vajras. After another half an hour, Yu Hong sorted out a contract, and Chen Guang and Chu Zijin signed it on the spot. Tianguang Media's first personnel appointment was done. Chu Zijin was officially appointed as the CEO of Tianguang Media, reporting directly to the group's chairman, Chen Guang. As the leader of this generation of bosses, Chen Guang planned to skip work and run away. Before he ran away, he gave Chu Zijin the first order, and it might be the only order he would give in the next 6 months. At that time, this was what he said. "Well, if there's nothing else, I'll be leaving first. Tianguang Media's office is over there. It's yours. Now, you look like a commander without an army. But it doesn't matter. From now on, you can recruit as many people as you want. As long as you can guarantee that everyone you recruit will be useful, even if you recruit 1,000 people. As for how Tianguang Media is going to develop its business in the future, I'll leave that to you. If you need money, you can talk to the corporation's treasurer, Su Li. If Su Li doesn't approve it, then you can come to me and I'll approve it. In a few days, I'll leave the connection with President Rao of Shanghai to you. Right now, our copyright library is a little weak. You can also try to explore and see if you can imitate the operating model of a variety show like I Am a Singer and buy some mature brand IPs overseas to package it. We can't delay the purchase of the copyrights. Once we get the funding, we have to produce results as soon as possible. They had to start within the next 2 days. However, they couldn't rush things like hiring people or buying the copyrights. They had to be done one at a time. If you can't handle it during this period of time, let Manager Lu and Manager Fang of the head office help you coordinate the manpower. As for the specifics, you can handle it as you see fit. After saying this, Chen Guang turned and ran away. It seemed like he gave Chu Zijin a lot of power, but in reality, he threw her a huge problem. With great power came great responsibility. It seemed like he didn't give Chu Zijin any clear requirements, but next, Chu Zijin had to establish the framework of Tianguang Media single-handedly. She had to build this company from scratch. At the same time, she had to follow his instructions and quickly launch a product. Whether it was a TV series, a movie, or a variety show, she had to come up with a profitable project as soon as possible. Apart from that, Chu Zijin had to deal with the possible invasion of Rao Shanghai. Although Shanghai only owned 5% of the shares, they still took out 1 billion in cash. With Rao Shanghai's usual forceful and domineering style in the capital market, Chu Zijin believed that he wouldn't just send the money over for nothing. Even if he didn't own a lot of shares, he might find a way to plant his confidence in the company. At the very least, he would find someone to watch over his money. Based on Rao Shanghai's style in the past, he would definitely find a way to seize the right to speak in the company. Chen Guang didn't have time to think about how Chu Zijin would be troubled by this. He was actually quite busy. In another 2 days, he had to take a leave of absence from school to go to Yanjing. This time, he was going to shoot scenes in Women. The considerate big-beard Deng arranged all of his scenes together. Usually, when Big Beard Dang was filming, almost all the actors he hired had to sign a contract with the production team, especially the main cast members. Big Beard had a deep hatred for actors and actresses. It was the same even for A-listers like Ren Chong and Zhao Yueling. As for Zhou, the main cast member, he wanted to sleep in the same bed as Big Beard Dang every day. However, to put all of Chen Guang's scenes together, the other main cast members had to film other scenes first. No matter how good Big Beard Dang was at planning, there were times in the past 2 months when he couldn't find enough time to arrange things properly. For example, super A-listers like Jin Shiyue, Jiang Yage, Ren Chong, and Zhao Yueling, if they didn't have any scenes in the production team, they wouldn't be like the other minor characters who had nothing to do and would hang around in the film city all day long. These people were money every day. Therefore, during this period, Big Beard Dang had to change his usual strict attitude. He gave people the green light to take all kinds of leave. The main cast members had to have their own work to do, and their sponsors would need them to make appearances from time to time. Otherwise, they would have to participate in variety shows to maintain their exposure. However, from next week onwards, all the leisure he had before would be completely gone. When Chen Guang arrived, all the main cast members would have to gather. Then, they would have to shoot intensively in the film city for about a month to make up for Chen Guang's scenes in one go. In fact, according to Big Beard's original plan, he had prepared at least 3 months for this period of intense filming in the film city. However, after watching Chen Guang's version of Thunderstorm and listening to Yang Shi's detailed explanation of the whole rehearsal process, Big Beard finally accepted his fate and forcibly compressed the time to 1 month. He had to admit that he had misjudged Chen Guang. After completing the intense filming in the film city, the production team would travel all over the country to shoot all the outdoor scenes in the next 2 months. During the entire period of outdoor filming, the other main cast members had to be on standby at all times. Other minor characters that had been agreed upon would enter and leave the production team in between. Although there were only 2 super-listers in the leading role list of women, in fact, there were several super-listers among those who had come to play minor characters because of Big Beard Dang. The busy schedule of top actors and actresses could be seen from Big Beard Dang's schedule. Almost every day was a schedule. It was either one thing or the other. The cruelest thing was that more than a small number of people had to cooperate with one thing. For example, an actor had originally agreed to participate in a certain event on a certain day, and hundreds of organizers and hundreds of fans were waiting under the stage. They said that they would arrive at 9 o'clock, but if the plane arrived at 10 o'clock late, it would be an accident of being slandered. Another example was Big Beard Dang's film. It had been agreed that the actor would shoot the scene today, and other artists and stars were waiting here. Even if the shooting was in Ninghai today and the actor was in Yanjing yesterday, and the shooting was scheduled to start at 9 o'clock in the morning, the actor had to arrive on time. Otherwise, if such a large crew set up the set on the plateau against the wind and sand of Ninghai, and several other superstars with the same net worth of hundreds of millions of yuan were waiting, but the actor could not come, the whole thing would be in a mess. It would be delayed for another day, and the actor would miss the schedule of others. Because of this, most of the popular actors seemed to be glamorous in the eyes of outsiders, but in fact, they had to live under the strict arrangement of their agents every day, even every hour. They were not even qualified to be sick. But there were some unusual people in this circle after all. For example, the reason why Jin Shiyue and Jiang Yage were relatively free of time was that they almost never participated in any variety shows, and almost never endorsed any products, let alone supported any brands. Ever since their debut, the 2 of them had only been doing what they were interested in. They were either shooting or writing songs, holding 1 or 2 concerts a year, releasing an album, shooting 1 or 2 movies, and then, that was it. As for the remaining time, the 2 of them were free to do as they pleased. Before they met Chen Guang, the 2 of them practically spent all their spare time studying, reading, exercising, or practicing their dancing and singing. After all, they were born in big families, but because they had debuted early, they could not grow up in school like ordinary people. But as children of big families, they could not be ignorant and could not go to college like ordinary people, but they still had to constantly enhance their cultural literacy through daily reading. Fortunately, the two were amazingly talented in music and had received degrees from the Vienna Conservatory of Music early, so they could move out in public and not bring shame to their families. But now the real unusual person appeared, and it was none other than Chen Guang. If anyone could see Big Beard Deng's outdoor shooting plan in advance, they would find that his entire schedule was still revolving around Chen Guang. Other people had to follow the crew around for 2 months, but the scenes related to Chen Guang could be finished at the end of the first month, and then he had nothing to do. After shooting his own scenes, he could leave. He only needed to wait for Big Beard to finish the post-production, and then consider whether to participate in the road show promotion, and then the film would be released in half a year. As a new actor, he was treated like an emperor with such a degree of resources. Big Beard Deng spent at least more than 30% of his energy on dealing with the schedule adjustment of the crew. Only an experienced director like Big Beard could divide the scenes so harmoniously under such harsh conditions. The crew's work was so tight, and if it were a less experienced director, the crew would have been in chaos. There were many reasons for such a phenomenon. Although Chen Guang was born as an internet celebrity, his performance in the online media and public opinion was too strong since his debut. The speed of his rise was too fast and too violent, so that people had to figure out his background and origin in all kinds of ways. What was even more outrageous was that he actually changed from the male lead of Women to a major shareholder, with the total investment of the film accounting for 60% of the shares. Coupled with the groundless rumors that Big Beard Deng had heard indirectly, it really made him, a pure newcomer, the biggest star as soon as he debuted. 2 days later, Chen Guang finally took a long leave from school and flew directly to Yanjing alone. He didn't have an agent, and the whole Tianguang group was his agency. He didn't need an assistant to help him move things, and he could carry hundreds of kilograms without blinking. He didn't need a bodyguard when he went out, because he was the world's #1 master. At the same time, another earth-shaking news swept through the domestic capital and entertainment circles like a tsunami. Tianguang Media, which had just cut the ribbon for less than 3 days, received its first round of financing. Chapter 964. It was led by Rao Zhenghai of the Rising Sea Fund, together with several financial institutions and private tycoons, to invest in the new Tianguang Media. Tianguang Media was valued at 20 billion. Rao Zhenghai invested 1 billion, but he only owned 5% of the shares. 2 days ago, there were all kinds of discussions on the internet about the purpose of Chen Guang's shell company. There were all kinds of speculations and all kinds of black-bellied schemes. The common view of most people was that the company wouldn't survive more than half a year. In the blink of an eye, it became the highest valuation in the cultural industry of Huaxia in the past decade. The slap in the face came too fast. There was a huge uproar, and everyone was caught off guard. In addition, the CEO of Tianguang Media finally appeared. Those who watched live streams often knew her. She was an online streamer from Bamboo. Those who didn't pay much attention to live streams were dumbfounded. What the hell? A company valued at 20 billion was actually controlled by a girl who looked no older than 21 or 22. What's going on in Chen Guang's head? He was crazy. As expected of Chen Guang, who had a corrupt private life. The vice president of Tianguang Group was a mature and charming beauty, and now the CEO of Tianguang Media was a cute little beauty. Many people were cursing Chen Guang, who didn't show up today. This evil winner in life would die on a woman's belly sooner or later. Fortunately, Tang Ying went to the United States 2 days ago. She, the vice president of Tianguang Group, didn't show up. Otherwise, the public would be in an uproar. Perhaps, only Chu Zijin's fans on Bamboo were in ecstasy. In the past, Chu Zijin's talent was only known in their small circle. Although she had shown incredible abilities in the live stream, many people still thought she cheated to please the public. It wasn't until she amazed the world at the conference that the doubts in Bamboo gradually disappeared. Of course, the real star of the conference was Chen Guang. Although Chu Zijin did well, she was still far from Chen Guang. Therefore, her influence was still limited to the live stream audience. Many of her diehard fans were waiting for her to stand up and do something to prove herself. Now, the day had finally come. She finally chose to stand up. She controlled a company with a market value of 20 billion. How high a starting point was that? She would definitely be able to show off her abilities and live up to her name as a genius. But that wasn't the only thing that shocked everyone. Many people assumed that Rao Zhenghai would plant his men in Tianguang Media, but he showed complete trust in this young CEO of Tianguang Media. He went against his previous principle of only injecting capital and not sending people. How was this an investment? This was clearly charity. He was clearly giving money to Chen Guang. Originally, Chen Guang's arrival in Yanjing today was not widely publicized, but it happened to coincide with the press conference of Rising Sea and Tianguang Media in the morning. As a direct result, the heat that had just faded from his head soared to the sky in an instant. Finally, a well-informed person found out that Chen Guang would be joining Big Beard Dang's production team tomorrow, and the fact that he had taken leave from school yesterday was also dug out. This could only mean one thing: he would be in Beijing today. As a result, countless reporters swarmed to the airport just to wait for the rabbit to come to them. If Chen Guang was not the recipient of the International Air Transport Association's Hero Medal, and his personal information was protected by major airlines around the world, even his flight information would have been dug out. Before Chen Guang reached the exit of the airport, he saw a huge crowd of reporters in front of him from afar. After thinking about it again and again, he decided to leave through this exit and face the reporters' questions head-on. If it was before, he would definitely think of a way to find the airport management and escape through the staff passage. However, before he boarded the plane in the morning, he had contacted Rao Zhenghai and knew the purpose of these reporters' visit. Rising Sea's investment in Tianguang Media had already become big news. Coupled with Rao Zhenghai's concession and Chu Zijin stepping out from behind the scenes, this news would completely explode. If he kept running away, he was afraid that Rao Zhenghai would be under too much pressure, especially in the limelight of public opinion. If others were kind to him, he had to be kind and righteous too. At the very least, he had to help Rao Zhenghai shift some of the pressure and give a clear statement. He had to stand on the stage for Tianguang Media, which was at the heart of the storm, and boost the company's confidence and status in the eyes of small and medium investors. At the same time, he could also help Rao Zhenghai cover his capital operation. Now, Chairman Rao was a little anxious and angry. Because the order came directly from the top, he made an unprecedented concession to Chen Guang. However, he initially thought that Chen Guang would at least be the head of Tianguang Media. He did not expect that Chen Guang would push another young girl to the front. This made him relatively passive in dealing with the aftermath. Some major shareholders who could influence his decisions were already quite dissatisfied with this. In just a short half a day, even though the major media outlets were all over the place, it still affected a few medium and large funds related to this transaction. Now, many people were anxious to cash out and leave. However, if they sold out now, it would definitely cause a chain reaction. By then, they might really have to face the consequences of losing more than 1 billion yuan in market value. However, if they did not think of a way to leave, based on the current trend, the price would continue to fall slowly in the next few days. By then, they would still lose a lot of assets. Although the capital market was manipulated, overall, it was still traceable. It followed the rules of the market at certain times and ranges. The best situation now was for Chen Guang to step up to boost the market's confidence and stop the downward trend. In the next few days to half a month, the major shareholders would quietly get out of the trap. At the same time, the small and medium investors who were attracted to invest in the market would take over. Then, the market's fluctuation would be controlled at a relatively stable state. Before Chen Guang reached the exit, his phone, which had just been turned on, rang again. He picked it up and saw that it was old Master Jean. After he picked up, Old Master Jin's slightly tired voice came from the other side. Little Chen, why did you let a little girl be the head of your company? Even if you really don't want to be in charge, shouldn't you at least go through the motions? We want to compensate you, but we shouldn't make things too difficult for little Rao and the others, right? Chen Guang did not want to talk to Old Master Jin about this. Grandpa Jin, I understand. But don't worry, Chu Zijin isn't a mediocre person. I have my reasons for using her. I understand what you're trying to say. The reporters are right in front of me, and I know what to say. However, I do have something to do today, and I don't want to waste time in the 5 capitals. That's why I came to Yen Capital earlier. That's why I can't attend the 5 capitals meeting. It's just a coincidence that the timing coincides. I'm relieved to hear that. After a brief conversation, Chen Guang hung up the phone. He knew that Rao Zhenghai must have been afraid that he would not take this seriously. Hence, he took a huge detour to plead with Old Master Jin. After putting his phone in his pocket, Chen Guang straightened his clothes. He curled his right hand slightly and hooked his thumb on the strap of his bag. A confident smile appeared on his face as he strode toward the exit with his head held high. I understand what you're trying to say. You're just rich people who are afraid of being taken advantage of and want to run away. You think that since I've taken your money, I should help you avert disaster. You're trying to trick the individual investors and losers into coming in to be scapegoats. How big of a deal is this? I'll go along with your wishes, but you'll definitely regret it in the future. Not only will I not scam the individual investors, but anyone who is involved in this round of capital operation means that they trust me, Chen Guang. It means that they approve of me. I, Chen Guang, will never let those who approve of me suffer a loss. I'll make you rich. When the reporters saw him, there was a brief commotion. They seemed to want to push forward. However, the warnings from their counterparts in the 5 capitals were still ringing in their ears. In the end, these people finally settled down. They appeared to be exceptionally orderly. They stood orderly from the front to the back according to the status of the reporters who came to interview them. Chen Guang walked straight out. Some young reporters could not hold back their curiosity and wanted to ask questions. However, Chen Guang raised his hands and pressed them down. He gestured for everyone to be quiet. Then, he raised his head and asked, "Let me ask first. You're all here to interview me, right? A few days ago, I saw Wang Tushio's news. In the end, they were interviewing Jay Cho. That scene was simply too awkward. I'm a little scared." Many reporters burst into laughter. Since Chen Guang was willing to joke, it meant that he was in a good mood today. This guy who always had a big mouth was happy. It meant that today's trip was not in vain. This was good news. That's right, Mr. Chen. We're indeed here to interview you. Mr. Chen, don't be afraid. We're all here for you. Chen Guang smiled again. That's good. However, everyone, follow me and move to another place. It's not good to block the way and prevent people from coming out. After saying that, he led the way through the crowd and walked to the other side. None of the reporters tried to rush forward. Instead, they obediently followed his footsteps and moved to the side. This scene fell into the eyes of a group of elders in a certain conference room in Yanjing. They all nodded in agreement. Although Little Chen said that the other day, he's actually becoming more and more like a general. That's why people's hearts are always complicated. No matter how impulsive a teenager is, he'll grow up sooner or later. On the other side, Chen Guang stood still and turned around. Looking at the approximately 50 to 60 reporters in front of him, he thought for a moment and said, "Everyone, there's a little too many of you. I'm afraid I can't answer everyone's questions. How about this? Those of you who are familiar with each other can discuss it together and try to unify their opinions. We'll limit the number of questions to about 5. Don't worry. No matter how tricky your questions are, I'll be able to answer them until you're satisfied. Okay? The reporters had long heard of this, so they weren't surprised by it. The discussion lasted roughly 5 minutes, during which Chen Guang stood on the spot with a smile on his face the entire time. The reporters finally came to a conclusion. Chapter 965. The first middle-aged reporter stood up, handed the microphone to Chen Guang, and asked cautiously, "Mr. Chen, our first question is this. Did you already discuss financing matters with the Rising Sea Fund before the establishment of Tianguang Media?" Chen Guang nodded. "Yes, and the proportion of shares has also been determined." The reporters were shocked. They didn't expect him to admit it so easily. "Then, Mr. Chen, do you think Tianguang Media is really worth 20 billion? Why didn't the Rising Sea Fund directly invest in your Tianguang group, but set up a subsidiary company that you solely controlled? Is there any suspicion of cashing out through a backdoor? Does this harm the interests of the other shareholders of the Rising Sea Fund?" Chen Guang grinned. "Brother, you've asked quite a few questions this time." The other reporters turned their faces and glared at the reporter who had accidentally asked a few more questions. However, Chen Guang quickly reassured them. "But I'm in a good mood today, so I won't care about this. Although you asked a lot of questions, and they were very sharp, I'll take it that you only asked one. Anyway, we can answer them together." He cleared his throat and nodded without hesitation. "I think Tianguang Media is certainly worth 20 billion. As for why I didn't invest in Tianguang Group, of course, it's because the main resources of Tianguang Group are focused on my personal brand value, and the main business of the media company is to manage other cultural projects. It seems that I have shares in both companies, but the scope of business is actually different, and the market value is also different. One is my personal brand, and the other is my personal management ability. There is an essential difference between the two. As for cashing out through a backdoor, it doesn't sound very good. But let me ask you, if Tianguang Media can make money in the next few years, and the profits are worthy of this market value, then will the cashing out be self-defeating?" As he spoke, Chen Guang's face was brimming with confidence from the beginning to the end. He had already displayed his world-class acting skills without batting an eyelid. "Mr. Chen, since you think that Tianguang Media represents your management ability, why did you choose a young girl like Chu Zijin to be the CEO of Tianguang Media instead of taking the position yourself?" "Chen Guang, you are all well-informed media reporters. I believe you have done some research on Chu Zijin before coming here. The reason I chose her is very simple. I trust her ability. Although she used to work as a female broadcaster, you should know that many people in the broadcasting industry regard her as another me. I think she and I have a lot in common. She is qualified for the position. When necessary, I will also review her decisions. Although I don't hold any specific position in Tianguang Media, I still have the highest decision-making power in the media company. There is no doubt about that. Mr. Chen, may I ask you a question? What is the relationship between you and Mr. Chu?" This person clearly had the tendency to lead the topic to Chen Guang's private life. "Before this, she was my friend. If you have seen the previous World's Language Conference, you should know a thing or two about her talent. As for now, she is my employee, and I am her boss. There is no other relationship." "I understand what you mean, but even if I, Chen Guang, wanted to pick up girls, I wouldn't use a company worth 20 billion to pick up girls, right? There are millions of beautiful women in this world, but compared to them, I am more willing to realize the value of my life. Don't ask this kind of question again today. Mr. Chen, according to our current observation, Tianguang Media has only been established for a short time and doesn't have any quality resources. How can you guarantee that the company will be profitable in the next few years?" The reporter at the back hurriedly pulled the topic back. Chen Guang nodded with satisfaction. Every great company starts from scratch. Moreover, Tianguang Media already has such a high starting point. In the past 20 years, the cultural industry has flourished. I don't think I need to say more. I am very willing to take a share of the pie and I have the confidence. There are indeed not many quality resources now, but that doesn't mean there won't be any in the future. If necessary, although my personal brand resources are concentrated in the headquarters of Tianguang Group, I will do my best to cooperate with Tianguang Media's project operation needs. This year, I made many things that seemed impossible become reality and created many miracles in the ratings. In the future, I will create more miracles. This was basically Chen Guang's clear statement. Once he said this, it meant that in the future, if Tianguang Media were to run a variety show, such as Running Man, he would also do his best to cooperate. According to his experience in the past 6 months, no matter what the show was, as long as he appeared on stage, it was a guarantee of ratings. He had this confidence. Alright, this is already the 5th question. Only the last one is left. After that, I have to go. Chen Guang was ready to conclude. The reporters looked at each other and finally elected a highly respected senior. He cleared his throat and said, Mr. Chen, although you have many successful cases in the past, this era is changing with each passing day. Just like many celebrities who were at the height of their popularity 2 years ago, they are now past their prime. The future is always full of uncertain variables. We would like to know, Mr. Chen, where does your confidence come from? How can you be so sure that you will still be successful in the future? How can you be sure that your judgment will not be wrong? He was indeed an experienced man. His concluding question might seem innocuous, but it was actually very big. He had dug a hole for Chen Guang. Chen Guang's previous questions were too perfect and impeccable. Although it was strong enough, it didn't seem to be strong enough. Hence, he simply brought out a big framework. At the same time, it also represented the thoughts of many people. They wanted to test Chen Guang's secrets. He always had a mysterious aura around him because he was indeed too talented. Chen Guang suddenly grinned. Without batting an eyelid, he took out the heavenly holy grail and took a sip of tea. Then, he gave this old man a thumbs up. He held the cup in one hand and the microphone in the other. This is a good question. But let me ask you in return. So far, have I ever failed? After saying that, he turned and left. All the reporters were stunned. Suddenly, it seemed that he did not answer the last question at all. But on second thought, he seemed to have answered it again. That's right. He had answered it. He answered it with a question. Just as he said, he had never lost until now. This was the source of his confidence, and also the capital of his confidence. Just as his fans, the omnipotent Superman, had advocated, no matter what Chen Guang wanted to do, as long as he did it seriously, as long as he wanted to win, then he would not lose. This was how he organized competitions, and it was the same for his company now. Damn, this guy was really overbearing and unreasonable. Yet, he made people unable to refute him. This was his toughest answer to all the questions. I have never lost before. How can you be so sure that I will lose this time? With this airport as the starting point, the snowflake-like press releases quickly flew to all parts of the country. In the foreseeable future, Chen Guang's declaration of victory would definitely appear in countless financial and news reports. There would definitely be countless people who would believe it and feel that Tianguang Media was worth more than 20 billion yuan. The old men in the meeting room in Yanjin were also shocked by Chen Guang's last answer and didn't know what to say for a long time. Old Master Jin was a little upset. When he was talking to Chen Guang on the phone just now, Chen Guang had clearly seen through his thoughts. He had originally thought that if Chen Guang was still as innocent as before, he would be a little resistant to such a thing. But in the end, Chen Guang had dealt with this matter perfectly. But because he had dealt with it so perfectly and didn't seem to have any psychological burden, it meant one thing. He seemed to have changed. Little Chen is still able to see the big picture. People change. Maybe he doesn't even realize it himself, but it doesn't matter. He will slowly understand our difficulties. The greater the power, the greater the responsibility. To bear all the responsibilities, of course, he has to learn to compromise with himself. It's impossible for everything in the world to go according to one's wishes. You have to give up when you gain, and you have to find the best choice. The old men in the meeting room were extremely satisfied with Chen Guang's performance on the TV. They even felt that he was quite outstanding. Only the two old men had slightly complicated feelings, but they couldn't do anything about it. No matter how powerful they were, they couldn't control people's hearts, especially people like Chen Guang. 2 hours later, Chen Guang arrived at Shudian Film City in an online car. He, the male lead, was finally officially announced to join the cast after nearly 2 months of filming. Big Beard was so moved that 2 streams of tears flowed down his face. This guy was finally here. At this moment, Big Beard could especially understand Yang Shi's feelings when he was directing the drama. He had really been looking forward to this day. "Uncle, don't be like this. I feel a little guilty." Looking at Big Beard's excited look, Chen Guang really felt embarrassed. Back when he was not very famous, Uncle Big Beard had helped him a lot. Later, he went against everyone's opinion and invited him to act. At that time, it could be said that he had helped him a lot. It was just that later on, the plans could not keep up with the changes. God knew that he would encounter so many things that he was so busy that he couldn't care less. If it were other students who had the opportunity to act in front of Big Beard, they wouldn't even bother studying. They would probably want to live in the set. But he really couldn't do it. He was too busy, so he could only cause trouble for Big Beard. "Sigh, I really can't tell you how I feel. Anyway, it's good that you're here. But I didn't expect you to arrive today. I didn't arrange your scenes today, so you can follow me to the set and take a look. We'll start shooting your scenes tomorrow morning." Acting in front of the camera is a little different from acting in a drama. Although your performance in the drama a few days ago was very good. Okay, your performance was simply like a god's. I still hope that you can calm down and see the state of others in front of the camera. Chen Guang didn't think much of it, but he agreed without hesitation. He had already tortured Big Beard enough, so he didn't want to add more to his heart. Anyway, when he was on the screen tomorrow and the filming officially started, all the uneasiness in his heart would instantly disappear. Chapter 966. On this afternoon, Yang Shi was sent to stay by Chen Guang's side as usual. The job that Big Beard Deng had arranged for him was to give Chen Guang a comprehensive explanation of what actors needed to pay attention to during filming. But in the end, Yang Shi held a pen and paper, while Chen Guang held it with both hands. The two stood far behind the camera. Chen Guang talked to Yang Shi, who was next to him. He turned around and taught Yang Shi his experience in filming. Yang Shi, a famous young director, had completely become Chen Guang's follower and apprentice. 2 or 3 hours later, Yang Shi's notebook was filled with more than a dozen pages. He benefited a lot from it. There was another advantage for Chen Guang to stay with the crew. Jin Shuyue and Jiang Yage, the two performers, were as stable as ever. Compared with before, they didn't have any particularly dazzling performances, but they definitely didn't make any mistakes. This was the result of their age and life experience. Although they had been in the industry for a long time, they were young after all. They were not like other young actors, who had more time to understand life and improve their acting skills. Fortunately, the two of them were talented, and they did their best in performance. As long as they were accompanied by an experienced director like Big Beard Deng, they could accurately control their micro-expressions and the various details of their bodies to perform the effect that Big Beard wanted them to perform. This was their talent, but it was also a shackle that hindered their progress. As young actors, once their acting system was fixed, if they wanted to go further, they would have to completely overturn and rebuild their acting system. So far, the two of them had won a lot of awards, and they had even been crowned queen at a major Chinese film award. However, they knew that the value of the awards in their hands was not enough. There were many external factors that caused them to win the awards. At that time, it had caused a lot of controversy, and slowly, it had been left unsettled. So far, no matter how great their achievements in acting were, they could only be regarded as qualified actors. There was still a long way to go before they could become true masters. The two of them were well aware of this, but they couldn't come up with any good ideas at the moment. They wanted to change and subvert it, but they were powerless. However, the two of them were still young at the moment, so they were not in a hurry. This was always going to take time. The future was long, so they could take it one step at a time. But this time, after watching Chen Guang's version of Thunderstorm on TV, Jin Shiyue and Jiang Yage had new expectations for women. If it was someone else, perhaps the two of them could only give a performance that was passable, but definitely not stunning, as usual. But this time, it was Chen Guang who had to cooperate with them. Whether it was Jin Shiyue, who would play Chen Guang's first girlfriend who died of illness in the play, or Jiang Yage, who would be the female lead's fan, they were actually full of expectations. He could bring Shi Lu and the others into the play of Thunderstorm on the stage, so he could also bring them into the play of women in front of the camera. In addition, Jin Shiyue and Jiang Yage also felt that this play had a natural advantage that was different from the past. In the play, the two of them would play the women who liked the male lead, which was simply acting as themselves. Although Chen Guang hadn't appeared on the set today, he was standing next to them, as if shrouded by his mysterious aura. On the set, Jiang Yage performed very well. In addition to the standard performance a few days ago, she even had a little more spirituality in her movements. Originally, there was no rehearsal today. Hearing that Chen Guang was coming to visit, Jin Shiyue was also eager to have a try. In addition, the other actors on the set didn't know why, either. In the past, they often needed Big Beard Deng's strict instructions, but today they suddenly became much more comfortable. They didn't need Big Beard's hands-on guidance anymore. Basically, they could get the effect that Big Beard wanted, or even better, when they were on the set. Their understanding of the roles seemed to have reached a new level in an instant. Big Beard Deng clicked his tongue in wonder at the situation and was secretly delighted. He wasn't glad that he could be lazy, but he was purely surprised by the actor's excellent performance. Before they knew it, 3 hours had passed. The original plan of shooting 3 sets of scenes for 6 hours had been completed ahead of schedule. It was rare for the crew to have an early holiday. Old Ma, the stage supervisor, hurried to prepare the set layout for the next few sets of scenes. The assistant director contacted the small leaders of the small actors in the film city to discuss the candidates for tomorrow's small actors. On the other hand, the main cast members gathered near the set tomorrow. They watched poor old Ma busy himself while holding an impromptu script discussion. Big Beard Deng originally wanted Chen Guang to sit next to him, but Jin Shiyue and Jiang Yage took the seats on either side of Chen Guang. Even Yang Shi, who had been circling around Chen Guang for the whole afternoon, had to move. Compared with the signing ceremony press conference, the attitude of the main cast members, such as Ren Chong and Zhao Yueling, towards Chen Guang had changed 180 degrees. One reason was that he had become an investment boss, but the more important reason was his amazing performance in the play, Thunderstorm, some time ago. At this time, who still doubted his acting skills and level? They were simply stupid. Now there was only one question in everyone's mind, and that was whether they could be sublimated by performing with him on the same stage as the actors in Thunderstorm. At the discussion, Chen Guang didn't speak much, because he had said too much to Yang Shi in the previous 3 hours, and now he was too lazy to repeat it. However, whenever they talked about something, Yang Shi could always find Chen Guang's golden sentences in his little notebook. That afternoon was an afternoon of suffering for all the main cast members of Women, but at the same time, it was also an afternoon of crazily learning new skills. Chen Guang didn't need to open his mouth to speak at all. He wanted to show off, but Yang Shi did it for him with his little notebook. However, this wasn't the most terrible thing. Director Deng, who had been in the industry for decades and had accumulated billions of dollars in box office sales, had made a lot of achievements in both commercial and artistic films. After hearing Yang Shi read a few sentences from his little notebook, he took out a pen and paper from his pocket and took notes word by word. He even used his authority as a director to ask Yang Shi to read slowly. Also, after the script conference had lasted for about an hour, director Shi Changha brought his niece, Shi Lu, to the set. Director Shi used his old face to help Shi Lu ask Big Beard Deng for a female student with a few lines in Women. Big Beard Deng also wanted to see how much a new actor could improve after being shrouded by Chen Guang's legendary acting skills, so he changed his principle. After Shi Lu arrived, she wanted to ask Chen Guang to sit next to him, but she saw that he was surrounded by two guards, Jiang Yage on his left and Jin Shiyue on his right. Her jubilant enthusiasm instantly disappeared, and she obediently found a seat at the back of the crowd to sit by herself. Shi Changhe happily ran to Deng Xiaojiang and asked for a stool to sit down. In less than 5 minutes, the director was so excited that he hurriedly took out a pen and paper from his pocket and began to take notes. From time to time, he even peeked at the content that Deng Xiaojiang had written down. Yang Shi had lived for more than 30 years and had many notable achievements in the past. However, he had never dared to imagine that two senior directors with a combined box office of nearly 10 billion yuan would actually act like primary school students, reading one sentence and writing one sentence for the other. He was not feeling very well, and cold sweat was pouring down his body. Several times, he looked at Chen Guang as if he was asking for help, hoping that he could say it himself. However, Chen Guang ignored him and just lowered his head to play with his phone. Yang Shi had no choice but to bite the bullet. After a full 3 hours, this unique script conference finally came to an end. As Big Beard Deng announced the end of the conference, all the main cast members stood up as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. The scene was extremely quiet. Everyone seemed to be deep in thought, and some even bent down to knock their legs. They had been sitting for so long that their legs were numb. In these 3 hours, too much information had been forced into their brains. Although Yang Shi had only memorized a total of 10 or so pages of Chen Guang's words, the breadth and depth of the Chinese language could not be summarized in a simple line of words. It could be said that every word that Yang Shi had written down was a gem. Every sentence was full of deep meaning and was worth pondering. Immediately, it made people feel enlightened and like they had gained something. These were all golden sentences. Every analysis of a sentence took at least a few minutes, and at most 10 to 20 minutes. Unknowingly, it was already 6:00 in the evening. The originally planned script conference had turned into an analysis and evaluation session of Yang Shi's notes. The ones who felt it the most were Deng Xiaojiang and Shi Changhe. It was precisely because their level was high enough and their knowledge was broad enough that they stood at a higher position. When the same window was opened in front of them, the two of them could see more of the scenery in the distance than others. The two great directors looked at each other and saw satisfaction in each other's eyes. It reminded them of the time when they went to Hollywood to study together many years ago and were shocked by the extremely advanced Hollywood film industry at that time. Then, they crazily absorbed knowledge. How many years had it been since they came back from the study tour? They had never felt this kind of rapid progress. It could even be said that after listening to the short 10 or so pages of notes that Yang Shi had written down, the two of them felt as if they had lived the past 10 years in vain. Big Beard Deng finally understood. No wonder Yang Shi had been so excited that his face was red as he followed Chen Guang and crazily wrote things down. Scary. One had to know that this was just the content of that guy's casual comments on the film set in the afternoon. Chapter 967. The two directors couldn't help but wonder how much knowledge he had in his head. How rich must a person's theoretical knowledge be to be able to have such knowledge at his fingertips? No, he wasn't just memorizing it. Not only had he memorized these things, but he had also completely understood and mastered them, allowing this knowledge to form an extremely perfect theoretical system in his mind. The two directors became more and more frightened as they thought about it. They turned their heads to the guy who was still sitting in the chair, looking down at his phone. At this time, Chen Guang had already changed his posture. His phone was almost out of battery, so he placed Jiang Yage's pink popcorn charger on his feet. He seemed to be very busy. Everyone else got up and left one after another, but he still kept his eyes on his phone screen. Jiang Yage and Jin Shirue also placed their heads on either side of him, staring at his screen with a serious expression. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. When the main cast and crew were about to leave, they looked at Chen Guang again, who was surrounded by superstars. There was no jealousy in their eyes, only infinite worship and confusion. No one could understand it. Chen Guang, which deep mountain or forest did you go to cultivate in? It's one thing for you to perform amazingly on the spot, but why is your theoretical knowledge so rich and solid? Don't you give others a way out? You're said to be a genius actor, but how come you're also a master in theory? No, you're a master. A master. Deng Xiaojiang and Shi Changhe quietly moved to Chen Guang's side like thieves, as if they were on a pilgrimage. They wanted to peek at this guy's phone. Previously, he had said a few words to Yang Shi, but it was already better than studying for 10 years. Now that the three of them looked so serious, could it be that he was leading Jin Shirue and Jiang Yage to figure out the highest level of acting? The two directors finally saw it clearly. Then they almost fainted on the spot. Jiang Yage's face was red as she tried to snatch the phone back. She shouted, "I definitely can't have these three at once." Chen Guang put the phone away angrily. My hand slipped. Forget it, I'm out of stamina. Jin Shirue covered her mouth and snickered. You've recharged a few hundred yuan this afternoon, but you haven't even reached the 100th level. Chen Guang rolled his eyes. Don't I need 3 stars for every level? That's right, this guy is playing Happy Candy Crush. So while we were praying to the deities, this guy sat here and played for 3 whole hours? Deng Xiaojiang and Shi Changhe were on the verge of breaking down. What they saw might be a fake grandmaster. Little Chen. It took Deng Xiaojiang a lot of effort to calm down. He leaned over to greet Chen Guang. Chen Guang looked up. Uncle, is the seminar over? Then I'll leave first. Deng Xiaojiang was taken aback. Wait a minute. Chen Guang scratched his head. Is there anything else? Don't worry. I'm much more serious about women than the drama. I've read the script many times before, so I can recite it out loud. I promise I won't let you down tomorrow. All right, I can sign a military pledge. Deng Xiaojiang waved his hand. I'm not afraid you won't be able to act well. Chen Guang heaved a sigh of relief. He had been troubled by Big Beard's stubbornness and was afraid he would continue to harass him. That is? Shi Changhe leaned over. Hello, Mr. Chen. I'm Shi Changhe, old Deng's friend and Shi Lu's uncle. Chen Guang was stunned. Oh, hello, Director Shi. Weren't you rumored to be Shi Lu's uncle? Shi Changhe scratched his head embarrassedly. That was to avoid arousing suspicion. Now I realize it's meaningless. Oh, okay. Shi Lu had been hiding behind Shi Changhe the whole time, but she was too shy to come up and greet him. She finally seized the opportunity to come up and respond. Little Chen, it's like this. Old Shi and I want to know where you went to learn acting. You've changed so much that I feel like I don't recognize you anymore. Big Beard Deng finally asked. Many of the other main actors who were about to leave, like Zhouya, immediately pricked up their ears, wanting to eavesdrop. Of course, Chen Guang could not tell them the inhumane torture he had suffered in the world in a cup for the sake of this world-class acting. He just waved his hand casually. Where else could I learn? I'm so busy that I don't even have time to eat. These are all things I think of when I'm busy. It's not elegant, so I'm sorry for making a fool of myself. Everyone almost collapsed in laughter. Making a fool of yourself. Being overly humble is being pretentious. But it seemed like what he said was true. In the past half a year, almost everyone in the country knew where Chen Guang had been and what he had been doing. It was impossible for him to participate in the systematic study. Could it be that there was really such a valiant genius in this world who could master all the knowledge of acting just because he had nothing better to do and was decades ahead of others? Well, Mr. Chen, can you tell us what you usually do to hone your acting skills? This will be of great help to us. Shi Changhe asked shamelessly. Old Master Guang decisively turned on his bluff mode and started counting with his fingers. Taking a dump, taking a bus, queuing up to withdraw money at the bank, waiting for a match when playing games. Anyway, I just think about it when I have nothing better to do. Alright, if there's nothing else, I'll be leaving first. I still have some matters to deal with at the company. Sorry, see you tomorrow morning. After Chen Guang finished speaking, he cupped his hands and bade farewell. If he continued acting like this, he would be blushing a little. He was afraid that he could not help but want to hit himself. Jin Shiyue and Jiang Yage wanted to send him off, but Chen Guang politely declined. He really wasn't spouting nonsense. At that moment, Lu Xiaoyang had already parked his car in the parking lot of the film city. Lu Xiaoyang took an afternoon flight to Beijing. There was indeed something in the company that required his decision. Chen Guang chased Lu Xiaoyang out of the driver's seat the moment he got into the car. The god of racing had always only trusted his own skills. Therefore, there were many troubles when one had a big business. That morning, the financing of Tianguang Media and Rising Seas had come to an end. In the afternoon, Chu Zijin's negotiations with the two foreign companies had reached the final stage. With Chu Zijin's ability, there was actually no need to ask Chen Guang for such matters. However, the business guidelines and strategies that Chen Guang had given her were too general. She had to ask Chen Guang for his opinion on such a crucial decision. Chen Guang arrived at the hotel and was about to set up his computer to connect to Chu Zijin for an online conference when a video pop-up window popped up. Well, she hacked the hotel's computer again. Tell me, what's the situation? Chen Guang went straight to the point. Chu Zijin, who was on the other side of the video, had changed into a professional suit. It was already 8:00 in the evening, but she was still sitting in the CEO's office of Tianguang Media. This afternoon, Bacino and Fulia, who had been negotiating before, gave the final offer for the two shows at the same time. Previously, I wanted to buy the Chinese copyright of their shows, The Ultimate Challenge and Crazy Monopoly. Chen Guang nodded, indicating that he understood. Chu Zijin had been reporting to him about the progress of this matter in the past 2 days. She had sent him a stable email every day. Although he didn't read it carefully, he generally understood the situation. These two variety shows belonged to Bacino and Fulia respectively. One was in Europe, and the other was in North America. The ratings and reputation of these shows were very good, and they were already in the 3rd season. The licensing fees that were previously discussed were 60 million and 80 million respectively. Chen Guang felt that it was a little expensive, but it was not unbearable. In fact, the initial offer of these two companies was 120 million and 150 million respectively. However, Chu Zijin argued with the other party in the conference call and analyzed the value of the other party's brand in all aspects. She made the other party reduce the price 3 times in a row, and finally, they reached the current figure. However, Chen Guang originally thought that the other party would need at least some time before the final offer could be made. At the very least, Chu Zijin would have to personally make a trip. After all, once the so-called final offer was made, it meant that there was no longer any possibility of negotiation. Either they signed the contract, or they were done for. How much? Chen Guang had a vague sense of foreboding. In the video, Chu Zijin smiled bitterly. Bacino's final offer for The Ultimate Challenge was 130 million, and Fulia's final offer for Crazy Monopoly was 180 million. Chen Guang's pupils shrank. Is she crazy? It's even higher than the first offer? Chu Zijin nodded. They must have been paying attention to our company's news. They changed their minds at the last minute after Shanghai injected 1 billion yuan. The executives of these two companies should have contacted each other and seen through our psychological expectations of buying a mature IP variety show. Chen Guang leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes slightly. He was going to be treated as a sucker and raised the price. Damn it, the old man's money was not. Fine, it was actually the wind that blew it, but you guys turned around and asked for an exorbitant price. Isn't that a little too much? I'm rich, but I'm not stupid. Besides, aren't you guys wasting Chu Zijin's efforts in the past few days? Are you guys playing with me? Tell them to stay where they are. I'm not buying any more. After thinking about it for about 5 seconds, Chen Guang gave Chu Zijin a definite answer. Chu Zijin was a little hesitant. In fact, she felt that she could still fight for it. There was still a chance to negotiate for 60 million and 80 million. But I have watched all the popular variety shows abroad. These two shows are indeed the most suitable to be imported. There is a shortage in China, and they are in line with the tastes of the current domestic audience. Their model is also more mature and easy to replicate. Giving up just like that. Chen Guang waved his hand indifferently. I know what you said makes sense, but foreigners are too dishonest. Dealing with such businessmen, even if we manage to negotiate, there will be more disgusting things in the future. We don't necessarily have to start with variety shows. Haven't we already bought a lot of copyrights? Try to develop it, as long as we don't touch that unlucky billionaire. Chu Zijin shook her head. Movies and TV series take too long to see results. From project initiation to filming, to selling the copyrights, then getting the broadcasting license, queuing up for the schedule, and finally broadcasting for at least half a year. But if it's a variety show, we can compress the time to 2 months. 1 episode a week is also easier to arrange. As long as the overall planning is good, the first episode can be broadcast in 3 months at the latest. I know you have some connections, so it's easier to get the license. Chen Guang pinched his chin. Chu Zijin had thought more about this than him. Then, let's do an original show. Buying someone else's license fee of hundreds of millions is too wasteful. We might as well do an original show. Chu Zijin was stunned. Original show? But we can't find suitable talent in such a short time. A good director team is in high demand in the country now. I think you might be giving yourself too much pressure. It doesn't necessarily have to be a big hit for the first show, as long as it can maintain a certain level of attention. When the time is right, I can also participate in it myself. We don't have to poach the best director team. We can find a mediocre team to cooperate with and come up with a passable idea as soon as possible. If it must be a big hit, I can participate in it when I'm free. Chu Zijin was a little unwilling. She was anxious to produce some results and didn't want to make do. However, Chen Guang suddenly changed the topic and said, I have a great suggestion. Someone that we both know has a mature directing team. Borrow it from him. Who? Bamboo's Chang Xiaozong. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.